Our tale begins with The Sacred Itella, a hit novel about a saintess saving the world. Someone's favorite bedtime story, apparently. Flash to a modern woman, 34 years old, her expression hinting at a life less fantastical. Her previous chapter closed dramatically on a dark, rainy night, a consequence of tracking a dangerous individual. Next thing she knows, a clenched fist and a furious demand for her to come to her senses greet her. An enraged nobleman then grills a pink-haired lady, clearly unhappy she's dared to show her face at the family estate. This pink-haired lady, understandably, is quite confused as her last memory involved, well, not being alive. Her brilliant golden eyes snap wide, processing the sheer impossibility of her current predicament. A quick survey of the fancy chandeliers and candelabras confirms this definitely isn't the afterlife she envisioned. The fuming nobleman, his patience utterly depleted, orders her immediate confinement and banishment to the Grand Temple by morning. Before she can even question this sudden turn of events, two stern maids are already escorting the bewildered lady away. She internally questions her sudden weakness, surprised at being so easily manhandled. As the maids drag her away, she laments her apparent loss of muscle mass in this new, bewildering body. The nobleman disdainfully sets down his fork, his meal utterly ruined by her presence. He coldly declares her sight sickening, banishing Ordal from his presence forever. The name Ordal hits her like a ton of bricks, her eyes wide with dawning, horrified recognition. That familiar, ominous name clicks into place, sending a shiver of understanding through her. Suddenly, a translucent blue screen materializes, welcoming user Cha Siwan to the world of the sacred Itella as Ordal Kiris. She grapples with the impossible revelation, an AI system, transmigration, and her new identity as Ordal Kiris. The system promises a smooth transition, prompting her to wonder if this strange interface is visible to anyone else. Before she can process further, the maids unceremoniously shove her into a dark, unknown room. The maids shut her in, one with a smug grin, as the system offers its dubious assistance, much to her internal disgust. A system screen reveals her new identity. Ordal Kiris, a girl from a minor noble branch who suddenly manifested divine power. It seems Count Kiris aimed to exploit Ordal's supposed divinity, scheming to elevate her to saintess for the family's gain. He struck a deal with the struggling sun god's Grand Temple, whose high priest, desperate for funds, agreed to the sacrilegious plan. The Count then began molding Ordal through severe mistreatment and psychological manipulation. She endured a brutal upbringing, forced into a role she never chose under threat of punishment. Through this ordeal, she was presented to the world as the fake saintess, a pawn in a grander scheme. Later, when the true female lead emerged, Ordal's jealousy supposedly drove her to commit terrible acts. The novel's narrative dictated a grim fate for Ordal, ending with her downfall at the hands of the story's heroes. Siwan, now in Ordal's shoes, remembers vehemently criticizing this very villainess while reading the original story. Siwan, looking around the desolate room, muses that Ordal's harsh environment made her villainy almost inevitable. Now in Ordal's shoes, she clutches her arm, a flicker of unexpected pity stirring for the character she once condemned. She grimaces, remembering she'd peacefully accepted death, only to be infuriatingly thrust into Ordal's life. Just as she questions her fate, the AI system materializes, ready to address her unspoken bewilderment. A tiny, furious Siwan demands the system explain this ludicrous situation and return her to her anticipated afterlife. The system coolly informs her that, against astronomical odds, the sun god of this world chose her soul to transmigrate as an apostle. She's utterly dumbfounded by the infinitesimal probability, feeling a surge of justified exasperation at her cosmic bad luck. The system clarifies the sun god, low on divine power, couldn't reincarnate her properly, resorting to placing her in Ordal's existing body. Siwan, now more composed in the dim room, directly asks the system what this underpowered sun god expects from her. A glowing quest notification erupts, tasking her with saving the near-extinct sun god by becoming a saintess, or facing eternal and dimensional annihilation. Siwan despairs at the insane quest, questioning why she should bother when the original heroine is supposed to save the day. The system reveals a crucial detail. She's arrived a full year before the novel's events, allowing for story deviations. This time gap, the system declares, offers her a golden opportunity to rewrite Ordal's relationships with everyone. First up on the potential relationship roster, male lead candidate Eric, the High Priest, presented in a rather dreamy scenario. Then, The system showcases male lead candidate Seth, the formidable Holy Knight commander, looking sternly protective. Even the original story's charmingly devious villain, Duke Thierry Luth, makes an appearance on her potential interaction list. The system confirms she'll be forging new connections with every character from the Sacred Atella. Saiwan, still stuck in the gloomy room, wonders what these interactions entail, still miffed about her hijacked afterlife. Despite her irritation, she concedes that Ordal's position as a low-powered saintess made her an easily manipulated figure for grand plots. She grips her dress, realizing Ordal's isolation means her internal transformation will likely go unnoticed by those around her. Siwan, now Ordal, gazes out the window, deciding to let the original heroine handle the world saving while she prioritizes rest. She boldly resolves to forge her own path and enjoy this unexpected second life on her terms. Recalling the Count's decree, she plans to visit the Grand Temple, announce her resignation, and then disappear. With a confident smirk, she mentally declares her intention to quit her role as the sun god's saintess. 3 days later, a grand carriage makes its way through a sun-dappled forest path. Inside, Siwan bemoans the lengthy, uncomfortable journey, revealing she's endured 3 days of starvation just to tender her resignation. She clutches her stomach, the pangs of hunger a stark reminder of her current predicament. A flashback reveals the Count's cruel order to deny her food and water, solidifying her decision to sever all ties with the Curies family. A wave of panic hits her as she realizes she might not even survive the journey to the Grand Temple at this rate. Saiwan lets out a weary sigh, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and growing concern as the carriage rumbles on. Before her journey, Siwan had interrogated the system about her divine abilities while still in the attic. The system informed her that her divine power was a paltry 2%, but could grow by gaining followers or vanquishing evil. She recalls scoffing at this as the original heroine, Itella, was destined to amass followers and fight evil anyway. When Siwan questioned why she specifically had to be the one, the system declared the answer classified until her divine power surpassed 40%. She seethes internally, remembering her fury at being transmigrated without permission and then being stonewalled by the system. The sheer audacity of the system and her situation was, and still is, incredibly irksome. Back in the present, her outburst has only made her weaker from hunger. Her first priority upon arrival is now food, lest she collapse. Finally, the carriage arrives at the magnificent sun-kissed sun god's grand temple. Overcome with relief and a wave of motion sickness, she shakily reaches for the carriage door. As she unsteadily exits the carriage, she nearly collapses, only to be caught by a startled blonde young man in priestly attire. She basks in an unexpected warmth, a feeling so comforting it makes her believe she can finally live. The handsome blonde priest, still supporting her, gazes down and hesitantly identifies her as the saintess. He appears slightly flustered by the sudden encounter, while Ordal looks up at him with wide, startled eyes. Still by the carriage, the young priest firmly holds Ordal, preventing her from collapsing onto the temple steps. Her mind, however, is a chaotic mess, singularly focused on her desperate need for food. This helpful stranger is none other than Eric Durda, the high priest of the sun god's grand temple. Saiwan recalls Eric knows Ordal is a fake, and he's a male lead destined to kill her after falling for the true heroine, all while eyeing a lavish meal. Famished, she practically inhales a piece of meat, much to Eric's slightly bewildered observation. Eric, with a kind smile, gently advises her to eat slowly, expressing concern she might get indigestion. Ordal, food still on her lips, looks up at him, momentarily stunned by his seemingly radiant presence. Her hand trembles slightly as she reaches for the cutlery, the lavish meal a stark contrast to her recent starvation. Composing herself, Ordal apologizes to the high priest for her unseemly display earlier, blaming her famished state. Eric, ever so gentle, dismisses her apology, observing she merely looked exhausted and needed no pardon. She internally cringes, recalling the original Ordal's consistently awful treatment of Eric, making this apology highly suspicious. Stealing her resolve, Ordal informs the high priest she has a crucial matter to discuss, deciding to rip off the band-aid. Eric's kind eyes sharpen with surprise and concern as Ordal boldly declares her intention to resign as saintess. She elaborates, claiming her family visit led to an epiphany. The saintess role caused her immense stress and ill temper. Offering a deep apology for her past rudeness, she even suggests individual apologies. But Eric cuts her short with a firm denial. He stands resolute, his gaze unwavering, informing her that abandoning her saintess duties is simply not an option. Eirik, his expression now unyielding, politely but firmly urges her to take back her shocking declaration. Ordell observes Eirik's unexpected resolve, realizing her resignation won't be easy. She attempts to ease his concerns about her family's donations, but Eirik insists his refusal isn't solely about money, as he cannot condone lies. Ordell counters, pointing out the hypocrisy of him presenting a fake saintess, suggesting her departure is a lesser deception. Eirik stands firm, his white boots planted, declaring that her resignation is simply not an option. He turns away, his profile resolute, stating the saintess's rightful place is the sun god's grand temple. The grand doors close with a sense of finality, leaving Ordell alone to process his unwavering stance. Ordell, hands clasped, wonders if her words struck a nerve, admitting she misjudged his willingness to let her go. Her determination flickers, recalling her tenacious past self, Cha Siwan, the unyielding detective. She decides to strategize on persuading Eirik later, prioritizing a search of her current room for anything advantageous. Ordell notes the room's surprising extravagance and the lavish meal, finding it peculiar for the supposedly modest Grand Temple. Ordell surveys the opulent room, her mind already shifting to a more pressing matter than its grandeur. Her immediate goal crystallizes. She needs to find any hidden funds the original Ordell might have stashed for her escape. Approaching a grand set of doors within her chambers, she audibly wonders at the sheer luxury of her assigned space. The doors swing open to reveal an even more extravagant sight, a massive, glittering dressing room overflowing with gowns. Her hopes for an escape fund plummet as she realizes the original Ordell likely squandered everything on these high-quality, expensive clothes. A voice from outside her room announces their arrival to collect the empty dishes, addressing her as Saintess. Ordell, momentarily startled, grants permission to enter, moving to open the main door to her chambers. A red-haired young man in priestly attire steps inside holding a tray, ready to clear the meal. This is Dietrich Warren, a senior priest, who explains the high priest was unable to collect the dishes himself. Ordell gestures for him to take the dishes, but Dietrich observes her with a hint of confusion at her unexpectedly calm behavior. Dietrich, the red-haired priest, immediately questions Ordell's sudden use of formal language, catching her off guard. He internally clocks her polite speech as highly unusual, a clear deviation from the saintess's typical demeanor, sensing something is amiss. Ordell, maintaining her composure, explains to Dietrich that a recent realization has prompted her to change her ways. She then drops a bombshell, apologizing for her past rudeness and declaring her unsuitability for the saintess role, announcing her intent to resign. Dietrich is utterly flabbergasted, protesting that she can't just abandon her sacred duties on a whim. Ordell cleverly flips the script, asking if it's truly acceptable for her to remain, leaving Dietrich visibly flustered and speechless. Noting his discomfort, Ordell clarifies she won't vanish instantly, but intends to compensate the temple for her past extravagances. She elaborates, with a touch of drama, that she feels guilty for misusing temple funds, especially after seeing her vast wardrobe. Later, Dietrich reports Ordell's shocking proposal to High Priest Eirik. She plans to sell her mountain of dresses to repay the temple. Eirik, reviewing some documents, appears to contemplate this unexpected offer, perhaps even surprised by the extent of her proposed sacrifice. Eirik questions Dietrich, repeating Ordell's claim about allowance money and her desire for cash reimbursement. He recalls Ordell previously stating Count Kiris bought a specific blue dress, making him ponder her motives for lying to sell it. Eirik muses on the Count's consistent coldness towards Ordell and her persistent yearning for his approval. He theorizes that Ordell accepting her father's indifference could explain her recent transformation in behavior and speech. Yet her wanting to personally keep the money from one dress makes Eirik suspect she still harbors ties to the Kiris family. Dietrich proposes following Ordell's plan to sell the dresses for temple funds, and Eirik surprisingly agrees, assigning Dietrich to manage the sales. With a stern gaze, Eirik then issues a crucial directive. Dietrich must closely observe the saintess's every action. Meanwhile, Ordell secretly eyes the valuable blue dress, deciding to keep it for an emergency fund, much to Dietrich's internal bewilderment. Later, Ordell awakens in her opulent bed, stretching luxuriantly, relishing a morning free from saintess duties. She basks in the peaceful moment, her serene expression reflecting her thought that this new, leisurely life feels like a dream. Ordell luxuriates in bed, musing that this pampered saintess life, with meals served and no expectations, might be worth enjoying for a while. Her peaceful morning is abruptly interrupted by a hesitant knock at her chamber door. A trembling young attendant enters, nervously announcing breakfast, much to Ordell's inner delight at the sight of food. As Ordell rises, the attendant flinches, her body language screaming fear at the saintess's mere movement. The poor girl is so terrified she fumbles the tray, a piece of food tumbling to the floor, her eyes wide with panic. Sweat beads on the attendant's brow as she stammers an apology, clearly expecting severe punishment. The attendant throws herself to the ground, begging forgiveness, while Ordell realizes her dream of a relaxing life is threatened by the staff's extreme fear. Still prostrated, the attendant pleads for mercy, specifically begging not to be whipped for the minor accident with the soup. Ordell is visibly taken aback, a horrified realization dawning that the original saintess likely subjected her attendants to physical abuse. She calmly tells the terrified attendant to rise, assuring her it's fine, but the girl remains petrified, still pleading to avoid a whipping. The attendant looks utterly bewildered by Ordell's unexpected kindness. Ordell calmly tells the still bowing attendant she can leave, and the girl hastily agrees. Ordell watches her go, noting the attendant fled so quickly and quietly, she didn't even hear the door. She touches her hair, realizing the staff's fear is so ingrained they expect harsh treatment for nothing. Ordell stares at her untouched breakfast, contemplating just how monstrous the original saintess must have been. Despite the grim realization, Ordell decides the food isn't to blame and prepares to eat. Soon only empty plates remain, evidence of Ordell's hearty appetite. Feeling full, Ordell decides to take the dishes herself, fearing the maid might faint if summoned again, but then wonders where the kitchen is. Suddenly, a holographic system window pops up announcing the Sun God's Grand Temple map has been unlocked. Ordell, surprised by this new game-like feature, realizes she can use the map to navigate to the kitchen. Ordell, tray in hand, peeks through a doorway, ready to find the kitchen herself. Two young attendants inside gasp in sheer terror at the sight of her. Other attendants react with abject fear, one even shielding his face as if expecting a blow. The dining hall erupts in chaos as staff scramble away from Ordell, who internally questions their over-the-top reaction. High Priest Eirik, looking rather surprised, asks the saintess what brings her to their humble dining area. Ordell explains her misguided attempt to return her dishes, sheepishly apologizing for the interruption. Eirik smoothly takes the tray of empty plates from her hands. He then assures Ordell she's not in the wrong place, reminding her the saintess has free reign of the temple. Ordell offers a polite smile, privately acknowledging the surface-level respect she receives, feeling a mix of apology and gratitude. The stark reality of the attendant's meager meal of watery soup and dry bread is revealed, a sharp contrast to her own. Ordell stares in disbelief at the attendant's pitiful meal, a stark contrast to her own lavish breakfast. The shocking difference between her rich feast and their watery gruel hits her like a ton of bricks. Her heart clenches as she notices even young children among the poorly fed attendants. A horrified realization dawns. She alone feasted while everyone else practically starved. Eirik, noticing her distress, cautiously inquires if the saintess is feeling unwell. Ordell turns to Eirik, her voice firm, reminding him of her plan to sell her extravagant wardrobe. Eirik confirms Dietrich relayed her intentions, though he seems slightly hesitant about the implications. She issues a new directive: use the dress money to immediately improve everyone's meals, especially the children's, and declares she'll eat the same simple fare. Eirik, taken aback by her sudden austerity, questions if she can truly adapt to such a change. Despite Eirik's concern, Ordell stands firm, and he reluctantly agrees to her new terms. Ordell, with newfound resolve, demands the dietary changes begin immediately. She strolls through the temple grounds, realizing the sun god's grand temple is surprisingly poor. The desolate, unkempt garden further highlights the temple's neglected state. Ordell recalls the cracked hallways and terrified attendants she encountered earlier. Even the prayer room meant to be pure was dusty, with more fearful devotees. She reflects on the pitiful meals, admitting she hadn't grasped the severity of the temple's financial woes. Ordell hadn't worried much, assuming everything would improve once the true Saintess Itella appeared, but now she sees the suffering. Having witnessed the grim reality, Ordell feels she can no longer ignore the temple's plight. She cheekily asks the system if it can add a quest reward, a peaceful afterlife, since this Saintess gig isn't her dream job. The system promptly updates, her wish for a chosen afterlife is granted, alongside the usual Saintess perks of wealth, honor, and power. With a determined gaze, Ordell formally accepts the system's quest. A grand notification confirms her new title, Saintess of the Sun Who Crawled Out of Death. The imposing title momentarily catches Ordell off guard as the notification hovers before her. The system sweetens the deal, offering an additional unexpected reward for quest acceptance, much to Ordell's delight. Sensing prying eyes, Ordell wisely decides to inspect her new bonus reward later. She spots Dietrich waiting nearby and quickly asks the system for alternative methods to boost her divine power. The system's solution is simple: make a deposit in the temple's offering box. Ordell scoffs internally, transmigrated without a dime. Now the system expects her to cough up cash. Realizing the temple's desperate need for funds, she resigns herself to offering the proceeds from selling that fancy blue dress. With a new plan forming, Ordell takes a step, ready to tackle her first Saintess duty. Ordell, framed by blooming flowers, confidently declares her intention to revolutionize the Grand Temple. Dietrich observes her from a distance, the setting sun casting long shadows as he wonders about her prior awareness of the temple's decay. Inside, Dietrich and Eric discuss Ordell's perplexing behavior, Eric pointing out her previous indifference to the poor meals. Eric, visibly unsettled, recalls Ordell's emotional display in the garden, admitting her abrupt transformation is rather unnerving. Dietrich, with a knowing look, remains convinced that the original Ordell was fully aware of the temple's grim reality. A chilling flashback reveals the former Saintess, Ordell, in her cruel glory, having deliberately cut others' rations for her own lavish lifestyle. Dietrich briefly wonders if a soft spot for children explains her change, recalling she never physically harmed them despite her tantrums, but then discards the notion. He theorizes that her recent experiences outside the temple, perhaps at the Count's estate, must have triggered this profound shift in her demeanor. Dietrich, however, resolves not to let Ordell's new agenda proceed unchecked, revealing a darker strategy, absorbing other temples to bolster their own god. As lightning cracks above a grand temple, Dietrich considers the dire consequences if word spreads that their Saintess's power or presence has waned, inviting aggression from rivals. Dietrich internally acknowledges that even a fake Saintess like Ordell is crucial for the temple's survival, justifying his past tolerance of her antics. A subordinate priest informs Dietrich that the Holy Knight Commander will return tomorrow after a 6-month mission. Dietrich muses on Holy Knight Commander Seth Noel, the temple's stalwart protector, whose presence brings him a sense of security. Dietrich coolly instructs the priest to ensure the commander reports directly to him upon arrival. Just then, Ordell peeks around the door, urgently requesting the high priest accompany her to the kitchen. Both Dietrich and Eric are visibly startled by Ordell's unexpected summons and her serious demeanor. Ordell, followed by Eric, strides into the kitchen, surprising the staff within. The head chef, Kento, identifies himself and politely inquires about the Saintess's unusual visit at this hour. Ordell, with a carefully composed expression, declares she came to personally commend the chef for his excellent meal. Her compliment, however, flies right over their heads, as Dietrich, Eric, and Kento comically wonder if she's subtly saying the food was terrible. Ordell internally smirks. Her praise was a clever ploy to expose the chef's dirty dealings. She recalls Kento is actually a spy for Count Kiris, embezzling temple funds under the guise of her food budget. Ordell considers Kento a truly despicable character, believing rooting out internal corruption is the first step to reform. She remembers Kento's hidden slush fund is stashed somewhere in this very kitchen. Her sharp eyes spot suspicious drag marks on the kitchen floor, a telltale sign. Meanwhile, Eric awkwardly explains their presence to Kento, who tries to usher them out. Kento grows visibly nervous as Ordell confidently strides towards a specific section of the kitchen. The chef's composure shatters, desperately trying to prevent Ordell from investigating further. Undeterred, Ordell reaches out to a brick wall, a sly smile playing on her lips as Kento protests. With a triumphant thought, Ordell confirms she's found exactly what she was looking for. Kento spins around in alarm as Ordell confidently approaches the suspicious wall, Dietrich observing intently. Ordell internally celebrates her successful hunch, picturing the bags of embezzled money hidden away. Eric, aghast, stares at the wall, the horrifying realization of embezzlement dawning on him. Ordell smugly recalls her past life as Detective Cha Siwon, an expert at sniffing out corruption and hidden cash. Dietrich turns to Kento, his voice dangerously calm, demanding an explanation for the chef's panicked reaction. Dietrich's eyes narrow with icy displeasure, a sight Ordell notes is even more terrifying than his usual anger. Kento desperately insists it's all a misunderstanding, but Dietrich coolly states they'll judge after his explanation. Dietrich delivers a chilling ultimatum: explain himself or face the Holy Knight Commander. Kento, sweating bullets and utterly cornered, glances desperately towards Ordell. In a last-ditch effort, Kento seems to reach out, internally blaming Ordell for his downfall. Kento, in a desperate move, lunges towards Ordell, accusing her of being the cause of his predicament. Eric, witnessing the chef's sudden aggression, cries out in alarm for the Saintess. Ordell, however, smirks internally, noting how predictably cowards lash out at those they perceive as weak. Her eyes glint with determination as she recalls her recently acquired reward, deciding it's time for a demonstration. A system window promptly appears, announcing the activation of her body enhancement skill. A golden light emanates from Ordell's fingertips as she channels her newfound power. With surprising force, Ordell delivers a swift forehead flick, sending Kento reeling backwards. Dietrich and Eirik stare in disbelief, completely flabbergasted by the Saintess's unexpected physical prowess. Ordell coolly addresses the incapacitated chef, sarcastically expressing gratitude for his service and suggesting he take a long rest. Kento lies sprawled on the kitchen floor, out cold, as Ordell calmly observes the aftermath of her decisive action. Ordell gleefully announces to the high priest that their financial woes are over, attributing it to a divine blessing. A chibi Ordell triumphantly hoists a heavy bag of recovered funds, as Eric internally marvels at her surprisingly potent forehead flick. Suddenly, an ominous red warning message flashes before Ordell's eyes, interrupting her victory. The world blurs as Ordell is struck by a wave of dizziness, questioning the nature of this sudden alert. System notifications reveal her single skill activation has utterly depleted her stamina, warning of impending unconsciousness. Dietrich, sensing her distress, realizes with alarm that the Saintess is about to collapse. He internally panics, realizing she never mentioned such a debilitating side effect to her newfound power. Dietrich lunges forward, his concern evident as Ordell begins to sway precariously. He catches the fainting Saintess just in time, cradling her as she loses consciousness. A brief flashback shows Ordell from a few hours prior, calmly meditating, likely when she first acquired her powerful skill. The flashback reveals Ordell deciding to accept her quest reward, a blue light indicating the system's response. A system message announces the sun god's blessing, making Ordell beam with excitement over a divine power increase. Her enthusiasm dips slightly as she calculates a meager 12% total divine power, recalling their sun god's limited resources. The system then declares her divine power has reached 5%, unlocking the body enhancement skill, much to her surprise. Back in the present, a chibi Ordell internally fumes that the skill description conveniently omitted any mention of fainting. In the flashback, Ordell muses she won't need to bulk up like in her past life, before a chibi version urges her to re-examine the previous panel. She mentally zooms in on the skill description, focusing on the fine print she initially overlooked. The crucial detail emerges. However, if the user's basic stamina is insufficient, there may be restrictions on skill use. A frustrated Ordell, still in the present, internally screams at the status window for not displaying such vital information more clearly. The scene transitions to a sun-drenched, empty room, suggesting Ordell remains unconscious elsewhere. Ordell slowly awakens in a lavishly decorated room, sunlight gently gracing her features. The scene reveals she's in a bright, opulent chamber with sunlight streaming through large windows. Eirik, his face etched with concern, calls out to the Saintess as she stirs. He leans closer, anxiously asking if she's feeling any better after her unexpected collapse. Eirik expresses his surprise at her sudden fainting spell, while Ordell internally questions her current location. Ordell brightly reassures him, attributing her collapse to a momentary dizzy spell from low stamina, noticing its morning. Changing the subject with a composed smile, she casually inquires about Kento's current situation. Eirik informs her that Kento is now imprisoned, and a thorough investigation is underway to uncover any accomplices. Ordell internally shudders, recalling the novel's grim details about Dietrich's rather intense investigative methods. She quickly schools her features, advising Eirik to ensure the investigation remains fair, reminding him everyone is considered family until guilt is proven. Eirik, slightly flustered, notes Ordell's uncharacteristically saintly words. Ordell internally schemes, deciding it's time to cultivate a benevolent image for her extended stay at the temple. Eirik solemnly confirms he understood, adding he watched over her all night and inquires about any lingering discomfort. Ordell turns, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, absorbing the fact Eric stayed by her side. She's inwardly touched, having expected an immediate grilling about the kitchen chaos, not his gentle concern. Ordell internally mulls over revealing her minor injury, wondering if it's worth mentioning. With a sheepish grin, Ordell presents her hand, admitting her finger aches from the powerful flick and asks if it can be healed. Eirik, his expression earnest, firmly tells her she won't need to resort to such actions again. Ordell looks on, puzzled, as Eric gently takes her hand, a warm light enveloping their joined fingers. He explains she doesn't need to put herself in harm's way, declaring her an incredibly precious asset to the Grand Temple. Ordell basks in the warmth of Eric's healing, recognizing the very power she currently lacks and hopes to wield herself someday. As Eric declares the healing complete, Ordell stares in surprise at her now faintly glowing middle finger. Business-minded Ordell immediately pivots, inquiring about the recovered kitchen funds, to which Eric reports a sum of 9 gold and 87 silver. She mentally converts the silver, calculating roughly 10 gold, and speculates if offering it will significantly boost her divine power. A system window cruelly dashes her hopes, revealing the pitiful 0.001% divine power gain per gold coin, leaving her utterly baffled. Ordell frantically recalculates, realizing the 10 gold is a mere drop in the ocean towards the vast sum needed for full divine power. The astronomical figure of 10 billion won hits her like a ton of bricks, leaving her speechless and pointing a glowing finger in shock. Eirik, puzzled by her strange gesture, prompts Ordell, who quickly feigns righteous anger over Kento's thievery to cover her surprise. But Eric, ever observant, isn't letting her off the hook that easily, pointedly asking for an explanation of the kitchen chaos. He presses further, demanding to know how she uncovered Kento's embezzlement and the hidden stash, insisting on a proper account. Ordell internally scrambles, knowing she can't just admit she read the entire novel. She brazenly claims it was a 100% coincidence, challenging Eirik to interrogate the saintess. Eirik, only his feet visible, questions her coincidence theory, but Ordell stands firm. With a dazzling smile, Ordell attributes her success to exceptional intuition, calling it divine inspiration. Eric appears bewildered by her explanation, while Ordell internally congratulates herself on successfully bamboozling him. She mentally pleads for Eric to let it go for now, vowing her own investigation isn't finished. The magnificent temple gleams under the sun as Ordell internally affirms there's still more to uncover. Night falls upon the temple, casting long shadows and hinting at clandestine activities. In the darkened kitchen, a lone knife rests ominously on a cutting board. Someone furtively searches through sacks, muttering in frustration as they fail to find what they're looking for. The frantic man, revealed to be Kento, clutches a sack, his face a mask of desperation in the dim kitchen. He tosses a small pouch aside, declaring it the last of the silver coins he could find. Kento seethes, lamenting his current predicament and blaming Ordell for exposing him after his supposed involvement in the embezzlement. With a sack slung over his shoulder, Kento resolves to grab the remaining loot and flee before the Holy Knight Commander's arrival. Suddenly, Ordell appears in the doorway, holding a single candle, her voice softly mentioning Kento and money. Her expression shifts to a chilling smile as she inquires if he found all her money, causing Kento to recoil in terror, believing her a ghost. Ordell, with an amused glint in her eyes, expresses disappointment at being mistaken for a mere spirit, as Kento finally recognizes her, his heart pounding. She coolly explains her stakeout, deducing he'd return for the rest of his ill-gotten gains with an accomplice's help, implying there's more hidden. Ordell internally revels in her successful trap, citing her extensive stakeout experience and the classic trope of culprits returning to the scene. Placing the candlestick down, Ordell acknowledges Kento's efforts to move the money, hinting she doesn't know the location of all the funds and needs to conserve her energy. Kento, flustered, attempts to intimidate Ordell by questioning if she knows whose authority he operates under. He furiously reveals he serves Count Kiris, demanding Ordell kneel and apologize for interfering with the Count's work. Ordell clenches her fist, coolly challenging Kento's demand, much to his disbelief. With a body enhancement skill activated, Ordell lands a decisive punch, sending Kento reeling as she internally scoffs at his audacity. Kento staggers backward, stunned and bleeding, as Ordell stands firm, having struck him once more. Clutching his injured nose, Kento looks utterly dazed while Ordell internally laments her punch wasn't quite strong enough, despite power adjustments. Kento, sporting a bandage from their previous encounter, sneers, believing he won't be fooled by her again. Driven to desperation, Kento brandishes a knife, vowing to eliminate Ordell to earn his master's forgiveness, as she inwardly notes his unhinged state. Ordell's eyes widen in genuine alarm as Kento lunges, realizing she's too close to evade his desperate attack. The gleaming blade speeds towards her, and Ordell internally braces for the inevitable impact, convinced she's about to be seriously injured. Just as the blade nears, a flash of silver hair and divine light intervenes. Kento lets out a terrified shriek as his weapon is sent clattering to the kitchen floor. A towering figure in knightly attire stands over the disarmed Kento, who stares up in utter shock. The newcomer holding Ordell gently inquires about her well-being, his voice calm. It's Seth Noel, the Holy Knight Commander of the Sun God's Grand Temple, her unexpected savior. He presses Ordell again, his gaze earnest, wanting to ensure she hasn't been harmed. The Holy Knight Commander's striking features are set in an expression of serious concern. Ordell internally identifies Seth Noel, marveling at his timely, dramatic entrance like a second male lead. Seth Noel is depicted as the High Priest's sword, a powerful force against her enemies. Ordell internally questions his presence, recalling he was supposed to be away on a mission. Seth Noel's pristine boot gleams as he furiously condemns Kento's sacrilegious embezzlement. The Knight Commander, radiating menace, coldly asks Kento if he has a death wish, with Ordell observing. Kento trembles, drenched in sweat, as Seth Noel icily promises to personally ensure his imprisonment. Seth Noel then turns his sharp gaze to Ordell, demanding to know why she's in the kitchen. Ordell internally curses her luck, realizing her solo Kento capturing plan is now officially derailed by the commander's arrival. Seizing the moment, Ordell dramatically accuses Kento of stashing even more embezzled funds elsewhere. Kento frantically tries to discredit Ordell, gesturing towards the recovered loot, but Seth Noel isn't looking his way. Peeking from behind Seth Noel, Ordell insists they interrogate Kento immediately to recover all the stolen money. Ordell mentally scoffs, deducing Kento tried to out her as a fake saint to save his skin, a futile effort. The camera pans up, hinting Ordell has a very specific, crucial piece of information to add. Seth Noel looms over Kento, offering a grim choice: confess the money's location for a chance at mercy. The Knight Commander's expression hardens, his eyes promising a swift end if Kento refuses. Kento trembles on his knees, the weight of the ultimatum pressing down on him. Defeated, Kento agrees to reveal everything as Ordell and Seth Noel observe his surrender. Suddenly, Eric appears at the doorway, having heard the High Priest was in the vicinity. Eric takes in the scene, Kento subdued, Seth Noel dominant, and Ordell a silent witness, questioning the High Priest's presence. Eric then directs his inquiry to Ordell, who offers a demure wave, internally noting their second encounter of the day. Seth Noel's gaze subtly shifts, a flicker of awareness at Eric's unexpected interruption. The Knight Commander glances at Ordell, a dawning understanding as Eric addresses her as Lady Saint. In a surprising turn, Seth Noel is now carrying Ordell out of the kitchen, her expression one of mild shock. Carried by the commander, Ordell deflects his question about her sainthood, while internally still reeling from Kento's ghost comment. Ordell offers a polite thank you to Seth Noel as he continues to carry her. Safely away from the kitchen, Ordell feigns a sudden weakness, attributing it to the shock of the recent events. Internally, Ordell seethes, frustrated by her current frail state and desperately wishing for her original, stronger constitution. Now seated, Ordell faces Eric's inquiry about Kento's escape and her presence in the kitchen, with Seth Noel standing guard. Ordell calmly begins her explanation, stating her intention was to apprehend Kento, hinting he's more than a mere thief. She drops a bombshell revealing Kento as Count Kiris's spy, leaving both Seth Noel and Eric stunned. Ordell elaborates, recounting how she overheard Count Kiris discussing Kento, providing crucial intelligence. Pressing the urgency, Ordell warns of more spies within the temple, their identities and numbers unknown, alarming Eric. She insists on an immediate temple lockdown to root out the remaining threats, privately acknowledging her need for their assistance due to gaps in her knowledge. Seth Noel acknowledges Ordell's intel, while Eric questions her previous silence on such grave matters. Ordell internally steels herself, recognizing the critical need to masterfully mislead them both. Seated gracefully, she internally debates revealing a certain truth versus protecting her father's secrets. Eric watches Ordell intently, a hint of unease as she weighs her next words concerning her father. Seth Noel's expression shifts subtly, as Ordell internally admits her perspective on the temple changed drastically upon her return. She inwardly confesses her past indulgence in luxury, realizing she was the one draining the temple's coffers. Ordell's internal monologue reveals her lavish spending directly impoverished the temple, a stark contrast to its current state. Her thoughts drift to the common folk suffering due to the temple's financial ruin, picturing their meager existence. Ordell rises, offering a solemn apology to both men and vowing to prioritize the High Temple above all else henceforth. Eirik, looking downcast, presses Ordell for the true reason behind her prolonged and consequential silence. Ordell admits she was gathering evidence against Kento, not expecting Seth Noel's intervention. She earnestly asks them to trust her vow to change, her expression serene and convincing. Eirik clenches his fist, internally acknowledging her transformation, despite their limited prior interactions. As they walk, Eirik voices his observation to Seth Noel. Ordell has indeed changed significantly. Seth Noel theorizes her visit to the Count's estate sparked this change, while Eirik urges a swift search for more spies. The Knight Commander resolutely declares an immediate temple lockdown and a thorough investigation of everyone. Under the moonlit sky, Seth Noel instructs Eirik to be meticulous yet gentle, especially around the children. As night deepens, Seth Noel vows to personally interrogate Kento and extract a full confession. A new day dawns, sunlight illuminating the temple as birds chirp, signaling a fresh start. Seth Noel, visibly concerned by the scent of blood, questions Eirik about his night, suspecting he was in the jail. Eirik nonchalantly admits to washing away the evidence, though Seth Noel's keen nose still detects a faint trace. Seth Noel informs a relieved Eirik that Ordell's lengthy preparations are a thing of the past. She's even discarded her extravagant wardrobe. Eirik internally reflects on Ordell's recent uncharacteristic actions, particularly her earnest apology. He recalls Ordell's determined stance as she pledged her newfound dedication to the temple. Eirik remembers Ordell's sincere plea for their trust, her serene expression leaving a strong impression. He deduces her drastic measures against the Count's allies prove her loyalty, and her past silence stemmed from a lack of established trust. Convinced of Ordell's transformation, Eirik resolves to adapt as well, just as a panicked maid bursts in seeking their attention. The distressed maid reveals Ordell is missing from her chambers and unresponsive to calls. Both Seth Noel and Eirik are visibly stunned and deeply concerned by Ordell's sudden disappearance. Elsewhere, a shadowy figure in a lavish room calmly observes an open book, a plume of smoke hinting at a sinister plot unfolding. The shadowy figure, Count Kiris, smirks with chilling confidence, his monocle glinting. An underling bursts in, excitedly reporting the discovery of a long-sought item's location to his lord. Count Kiris is momentarily stunned by the unexpected breakthrough, his composure almost slipping. His subordinate confirms the sacred relic of light has been found, prompting an eager Kiris to demand its whereabouts. The relic, they learn, resides in a forgotten temple in the Empire's northwest, a place Kiris didn't even know existed. His man confesses this dilapidated temple, serving an unknown god, was a recent discovery from their investigation. Kiris fumes over their previous fruitless searches, blaming the relic's obscure hiding place and his general disdain for the new year. Without hesitation, Count Kiris commands an immediate departure, his subordinate swiftly complying. Alone, Kiris clutches his head, seeing this as his final opportunity to break free from a lifetime of torment. With a fierce resolve burning in his eyes, Count Kiris swears he will seize the sacred relic of light, whatever the cost. Elsewhere, Ordell dashes through the temple grounds, her pink hair trailing behind her like a vibrant banner. She quickly falters, gasping for air, utterly dismayed by her body's pathetic stamina after mere moments of exertion. Ordell dramatically collapses, internally wailing about her paper-thin constitution, a stark contrast to her previous, more robust self. Her inner voice, depicted as a fierce chibi bear, wonders how the original Ordell ever managed her tyrannical reign with such a frail physique. Lying helpless, a miniaturized Ordell finds herself surrounded by ominously circling crows, much to her confusion. Despite her state, she musters a burst of indignation, mentally shooing away the birds, insisting she's far from defeated. Overcome with nausea, Ordell kneels, fearing this pathetic display might actually be the end of her second chance at life. Just then, Seth Noel and Eirik appear in the distance, the commander's voice calling out for the Saintess. The two men stare down at the crumpled, diminutive figure of Ordell, Seth Noel audibly questioning her bizarre state. Ordal's eyes well up with tears as she internally panics, realizing she's utterly immobilized before the high priest and the commander. Now seated, Ordal cheekily thanks the two men, claiming their arrival saved her from perishing due to exercise. Seth Noel, utterly perplexed, inquires about her supposedly intense workout, only for Ordal to admit it was a mere minute of brisk walking. She then offers a somewhat sheepish apology for making them come all the way to find her. Eric confesses his deep concern when she disappeared, leading Ordal to inwardly question if they suspected her of fleeing. Ordal confidently announces her new daily morning exercise plan, prompting Eric to immediately offer guard arrangements. With a disarmingly innocent smile, she declines guards, pointing out the temple's lack of visitors, much to Eric's dejected realization. Changing the subject, Ordal seriously inquires about the status of the spy investigation. Seth Noel details the ongoing interrogations, revealing Kento has already divulged a few names they're now cross-checking. The camera focuses on the stern profiles of Eric and Seth Noel, underscoring the seriousness of the spy hunt. Eric gravely states that some individuals Kento implicated were his own subordinates, declaring his readiness to resign if the accusations prove true, much to Ordal's internal disbelief. Ordal expresses her trust in the commander, then cheekily suggests he ignore her candid admission, though her sincerity shines through. She firmly insists his resignation would only increase her unease, imploring him to continue protecting the temple. Eric's striking blue eyes gleam with a steely resolve, absorbing her earnest request. Deeply moved, the Knight Commander kneels before Ordal, acknowledging her words and authority. With unwavering conviction, Eric swears upon his life to safeguard both the Saintess and the High Temple. Ordal inwardly finds his life pledge a tad excessive, though she recognizes it as typical of his intensely devoted personality. She reflects on Eric's steadfast loyalty, remembering that in the original story he was the one who stayed with Ordal until her very end. A vivid flashback shows Eric, armed and resolute, standing amidst a cataclysmic scene after the original Ordal was exposed and forsaken. Ordal recalls his legendary, despair-fueled last stand before a chibi version of herself frets about her own future and potential demise. Ordal confidently pats Eric's shoulder, declaring her reliance on him, then immediately seeks a private word with High Priest Seth Noel. Ordal internally frets, wondering if the High Priest suspects her true, non-saintly identity, as he looks slightly taken aback. Her inner chibi hopes her secret remains safe for now, while his chibi counterpart appears puzzled by her earlier request. With newfound resolve, Ordal confidently informs Seth Noel she's officially retracting her desire to leave the High Temple. She confesses her past feelings of abandonment prevented attachment, but now vows to serve diligently, despite her perceived shortcomings. A cheerful chibi Ordal reassures him she'll gracefully step aside if the genuine Saintess ever materializes, causing him to ponder. Seth Noel, a subtle smile playing on his lips, acknowledges her transformation and decides to entrust her with his thoughts. He affirms that by stepping into the role, she is the Saintess, the temple's highest authority, requiring no one's approval. The High Priest firmly states he accepts all responsibility for her presence at the temple. With a gesture of sincerity, Seth Noel empowers Ordal to act freely within the High Temple's walls. Ordal is visibly stunned by his unexpected declaration of support and trust, her eyes wide with surprise. Ordal internally marvels at the unexpected kindness she's receiving, a stark contrast to her expectations. She muses that while others likely scorn the original Ordal, these two men offered genuine support. A surge of determination courses through Ordal as she clenches her fist, ready to face her new reality. With newfound allies, Ordal feels a glimmer of hope that this second chance at life might not be so terrible after all. A few days later, Ordal's early morning exercise routine leaves her looking utterly wrecked. Her stamina has barely improved, much to her comical dismay, showing a pathetic 0.01% increase. A chibi Ordal despairs, dreaming of the day she can run a mere 50 meters without collapsing. While recovering, Ordal is startled by a maid urgently rushing towards her, calling for the Saintess. The maid prostrates herself in apology, prompting Ordal to inwardly sigh about everyone's overly deferential behavior. The flustered maid announces a visitor bearing a message from none other than Count Kyries, piquing Ordal's concern. Ordal, with a devious glint in her eyes, internally acknowledges the arrival of Count Kyries' associate, whom she clearly despises. Meanwhile, at the temple entrance, a commotion erupts as an unseen visitor loudly protests being denied entry. Inside, Ordal witnesses an older man, presumably the visitor, struggling against temple guards while berating a fallen acolyte. The young, tear-streaked acolyte offers a trembling apology for the escalating situation. The irate visitor continues to resist the guards, arrogantly questioning their authority to restrain him. Ordal steps into the tense scene, her voice cutting through the chaos as she demands an explanation for the disturbance. The visitor, a distinguished-looking older man, turns to Ordal, addressing her with the unfamiliar title of Miss Kyrus. Ordal internally scoffs at the outdated address, already plotting how to deal with this presumptuous individual. The man complains to Ordal about the temple staff's supposed lack of discipline, urging her to reprimand them. He then audaciously orders Ordal to guide him inside, pointing a demanding finger in her direction. Ordal feigns ignorance, coolly asking the presumptuous man to identify himself. The young acolyte flushes with embarrassment while a nearby guard observes the Baron with utter disdain. The visitor, clearly offended, glares as a vein throbs on his forehead. A chibi scene depicts the awkward standoff, with the Baron fuming opposite a composed Ordal and her retinue. The man erupts, questioning how Ordal couldn't know him, while she calmly dismisses his importance. Ordal further belittles him, wondering aloud why he's making such a fuss, as if his identity is trivial. The tearful acolyte, clutching Ordal's sleeve, timidly reveals the man's name, Baron William Gale. Ordal thanks the boy, internally seething at the Baron's audacity in harming a child. She orders a knight to escort the injured acolyte for care, her voice firm with disapproval of the Baron's actions. Ordal then pointedly mispronounces his name as Baron Grail, further infuriating the Baron, who insists it's Gale and blames the temple staff. Ordal lays down the law, informing Baron Gain that uninvited guests need proper authorization to enter the temple. She then offers the sputtering Baron a single chance, though her preference would be to eject him immediately. With a chilling gaze, Ordal presents him with a stark choice: depart or proceed with decorum. Suddenly, Seth Knoll and Eric appear, both looking aghast and vehemently opposing something unseen. Later, Seth expresses his shock at the Baron's violent entry with numerous knights, deeming a private audience with Ordal unthinkable. Eirik passionately concurs, denouncing the Baron's character and pleading with Ordal to cancel any private meeting. Ordal, however, beams with amusement, privately impressed by her ally's convincing performance. The scene shifts, taking us back 10 minutes to Ordal's private chambers. In the flashback, Ordal astutely deduces Count Kyrus sent Baron Gale, who'll likely use donations as a threat, a situation they must navigate carefully. When questioned about her strategy, Ordal reveals her plan to leverage the knowledge of 8 identified spies within the temple. Ordal in flashback instructs her allies to feign extreme reluctance before leaving her alone with Baron Gale. Back in the present, Ordal dismisses Seth and Eric, privately amused by their overly convincing emotional performance. Seth, playing his part to perfection, assures Ordal of immediate backup from knights stationed outside, much to her internal surprise at his acting skills. Alone with Ordal, Baron Gale furiously questions her sanity, invoking Count Kyrus's name as a threat. Ordal nonchalantly shrugs off his warning, stating the Count's anger is the Baron's burden to bear, not hers. With a knowing smirk, she challenges the Baron, asking if he truly expected her to cower at the mere mention of the Count. Ordal muses that she's been far too accommodating, realizing her new status as Saintess demands a firmer stance. The Baron explodes, calling her a fake, to which Ordal coolly retorts, admitting her duplicity and daring him to make something of it. She cunningly deflects, suggesting that while her exposure would be a minor embarrassment, Count Kyrus's ambition in creating a fake Saintess is the real scandal. Ordal drives her point home, asserting that the fake Saintess leverage works against Count Kyrus and his cronies, leaving Baron Gale visibly shaken. Ordal internally smirks, deciding the stick has worked, and it's time to offer a carrot to continue her scheme with the Count. She then sweetly assures the Baron she appreciates the Count's support, which allows her luxurious Saintess lifestyle, feigning her earlier anger was due to being ignored. A chibi Ordal then drops a bombshell, casually announcing her intention to start acting like a proper Saintess, leaving the chibi Baron utterly bewildered. Ordal coolly reveals she orchestrated the spy's downfall by reporting Chef Kento, leading to their capture by the High Priest and Commander. The Baron splutters, aghast at her actions, lamenting how difficult it will now be to plant new spies with key figures alerted. Ordal confidently explains she's gained the trust of those very figures, reminding him of their earlier concern and her ability to manipulate them. Baron Gale sweats, realizing that even if Ordell is a fake, her new allies, the High Priest and Commander, are genuinely capable. She boasts about earning their trust swiftly, proposing that if she performs her Saintess duties well, she herself can be the Count's best informant, cheekily asking if she still seems like the old, incompetent Miss Kyrus. Ordell then dismisses the Baron, instructing him to tell Count Kyrus to cease his spy games and simply wait. With a flourish, she declares her intent to bring the Count substantial funds as a true Saintess, though a tiny chibi Ordell privately scoffs at the idea of actually giving him money. Outside, Seth and Eric anxiously await, reassured only by the soundproof room and the ever-watchful Holy Knights. Meanwhile, the High Priest and Commander agree Ordell's unpredictable nature warrants her own dedicated knight. Their discussion is interrupted as the Commander notes the arrival of new visitors to the Grand Temple. Elegant carriages pull up, prompting the High Priest to wonder if it's the Kyrus family, but the Commander thinks otherwise. A distinguished dark-haired man in opulent attire alights from a grand carriage, his presence commanding attention. This mysterious figure with long, dark hair gazes intently towards the imposing temple structure. Inside, as Ordell dismisses Baron Gale with instructions for Count Kyrus, the High Priest enters with the enigmatic newcomer. Ordell and the Baron are visibly startled by the unexpected arrival, Ordell immediately questioning the High Priest about the guest. The High Priest, relieved Ordell is unharmed, formally introduces the imposing man as Duke Lute Sherry, stunning Ordell. He elaborates that Duke Sayeri is a pillar of the Empire, the master of the West, and Ordell internally panics, recognizing the story's final boss. Ordell internally reels, questioning if this is truly the infamous Lute from the novel and why he's arrived so soon. A system notification pops up announcing the AI is accessing data from the novel Sacred Idella for Ordell. The novel describes a soul consumed by absolute evil, finding serenity in chaos, perfectly matching Duke Lute's dark aura. He's depicted as the very embodiment of despair, his eyes holding an abyss of ruin. A flashback reveals Root Theory, the novel's name for Duke Lute, looking pensive under a full moon. The novel details his family's immense power, unique among ducal houses for lacking royal blood, and his past popularity. It further paints him as a merciless villain, constantly interfering with the story's protagonists. Ordell recalls the novel's cast, including the male leads and heroine, wondering why this ultimate antagonist is here now. Duke Lute Sherry takes Ordell's hand with a disarming gentleness that belies his reputation. He then kisses her hand, formally introducing himself as Root Theory, leaving Ordell utterly stunned by his directness. Ordell, ever the actress, formally greets Duke Lute, privately noting his striking appearance. The Duke declares his good fortune at meeting the Saintess, hinting at an urgent matter too sensitive for public ears. With a suave adjustment of his spectacles, Duke Lute smoothly requests a more private setting for their discussion. He then coolly suggests dismissing Baron Gale, preferring an exclusive audience with Ordell, leaving the Baron aghast. Ordell, finding the Duke's directness surprisingly helpful, cheerfully waves goodbye to Baron Gege, intentionally butchering his name. A tiny, furious Baron Gale silently seethes, his name once again mispronounced. Settled in a private room, Duke Lute cuts to the chase, revealing he's there because he heard the holy relic of light is at the temple. Ordell is bewildered, as according to the novel, Duke Lute should already possess the relic, not be searching for it. The holy relic of light is revealed as a pivotal item from the novel, the very artifact that set Duke Lute against the Sun Temple. It's explained that this relic was crucial for Duke Lute, as it was the only thing that eased his chronic, agonizing illness in the original story. The novel revealed Duke Lute's growing dependency and dangerous obsession with this very relic. It turned out the holy relic was a deceptive fake, its corrupt energy twisting Lute's mind and enslaving him to its creator, thus birthing the villain. Ordell, sipping her tea, coolly calculates that to ensure her own safety, she must secure the relic before he does. The High Priest then casually drops a bombshell. The holy relic of light is, in fact, already within the temple's possession, leaving Ordell stunned. A spark ignites in Ordell's eyes as she processes this unexpected twist, realizing the game has just changed. Her mind races, a predatory glint in her eyes as she recognizes this as a truly golden opportunity. Duke Lute, visibly relieved, expresses his gratitude that his journey wasn't futile and boldly asks Ordell to transfer the relic to him, offering anything in return. The High Priest looks on with apprehension as Duke Lute presses his case, vowing to use the relic for good and uphold the Sun Temple's honor. Ordell maintains a pleasant facade, while internally her more frantic side screams that handing over the relic would spell disaster. The High Priest, ever diplomatic, gently declines Duke Lute's request, stating that such a sacred artifact cannot be so easily relinquished. Duke Lute, looking genuinely distressed, presses the High Priest, questioning if there's absolutely no other option. The High Priest listens with a troubled expression as the Duke leverages his family's powerful status, promising anything in return for the relic. Ordell sips her tea with unnerving calm, while Duke Lute clarifies he only wishes to borrow the relic and implores her to state her terms. Setting down her cup, Ordell internally activates her get the money, keep the relic strategy, feigning consideration for his earnest plea, which puzzles the High Priest. With a disarmingly sweet smile, Ordell explains that even a duke must first become a registered follower to borrow such a sacred item. A chibi Ordell innocently suggests that becoming a follower isn't burdensome, just requiring small, regular donations. Duke Lute, a subtle smile playing on his lips, considers her proposal: become a follower, donate, and then he can access the relic. He readily agrees to her terms, much to Chibi Ordell's internal delight at how easily her plan is unfolding, as the High Priest and Commander observe. Ordell, radiating confidence, then directs the High Priest to prepare the necessary registry in the prayer room. Duke Lute stands solemnly at the foot of the Grand Temple statue, observed by Ordell, the High Priest, and the Commander on the dais. The sacred rites commence with the High Priest intoning blessings over an open tome. Ordell, flanked by the High Priest and Commander, presides over the Duke's formal induction. As pages turn in the Holy Registry, Duke Lute's name, Root Theory, is inscribed. A system window confirms the future villain is now a follower, boosting Ordell's divine power significantly. Ordell internally marvels at the massive 3% power surge from just one, albeit very powerful, recruit. She beams, welcoming her new, incredibly wealthy follower, Duke Lute, with open arms. Ordell smoothly transitions to business, proposing a discussion on the relic's lending fee, starting at a modest 500 gold. When the Duke offers to double it, Ordell gives a delighted thumbs up, coins practically raining around her. Another system notification promises a guaranteed vital skill unlock once her divine power hits 10%. Ordell's eyes gleam with anticipation, recalling her previous skill unlock and eager for the next power-up. Ordell, ever the strategist, pulls Duke Lute aside, suggesting a more discreet discussion about the relic. Standing before a closed door, she confidently announces she has a proposition for the Duke. Internally, Ordell's true desire shines through, a glorious shower of gold, as she plots her next move. Duke Lute, caught off guard by her unspoken avarice, appears comically bewildered by the Saintess's vibe. With a sly smile and a peace sign, Ordell casually names her price, a mere 2,000 gold, a secret between them. As they walk, Ordell cuts to the heart of his desperation, directly asking if his illness is why he seeks the relic. Duke Lute's eye widens almost imperceptibly, her astute observation clearly striking a nerve. Ordell reveals she'd noticed peculiar dark marks on him earlier, a detail others seemingly missed or ignored. The Duke adjusts his spectacles, a pensive look crossing his face as Ordell's words about his fluctuating condition hit home. Recalling the novel's details of his incurable ailment, Ordell deduces that those distinct black and gold streaks are the very key to his suffering. Duke Lute, intrigued, pushes back his hair, admitting few know of his ailment and questioning how she discovered it. Ordell clarifies that while the High Priest and others seem oblivious, she can perceive the peculiar marks on him. The Duke, arms crossed and looking pensive, notes that despite meeting countless individuals, no one has ever pointed out these marks. She posits her specialized Saintess healing powers allow her to see them, connecting the severity of the marks to his level of pain. Ordell deduces the marks are a physical manifestation of his illness, then cautions that the holy relic alone won't offer a complete cure. She confidently asserts that with her intervention as the Saintess, his fate can change, offering genuine improvement for a mere 2,000 gold. Ordell maintains a resolute gaze, her golden eyes fixed on the Duke, underscoring her serious proposition. A subtle smile plays on Duke Lute's lips as he internally wonders if he's being expertly swindled by a master con artist. He then smoothly inquires if 2,000 gold will suffice, a knowing glint in his eyes. A hefty bag of gold materializes, signifying the Duke's payment of 2,000 gold, a successful transaction for Ordell. Ordell clutches the hefty gold sack, her eyes wide with a hint of disbelief at the easy money. She hurries towards a radiant offering box, an imaginary angelic choir seemingly urging her to deposit the loot. As coins cascade into the slot, a system window confirms the deposit, catapulting her divine power to a crucial 10%. Bathed in a brilliant golden light, Ordell feels a surge of power as a new Saintess exclusive skill, Blessing, unlocks. The system details her new Blessing skill, the power to heal and to imbue divine items with blessings. A satisfied smile graces Ordell's lips as she recognizes the immense utility of this new, potent ability. Duke Lute watches, slightly baffled by the disappearing gold, while Ordell internally revels in her rapid saintly progression. Ordell turns to her new, wealthy follower with a dazzling smile, acknowledging his patient wait. With a flourish and a cheerful wave, she announces her departure to fetch the relic, leaving a perplexed Duke behind. A sudden wave of unease washes over Duke Lute as the Saintess skips off, a dreadful thought dawning. Has he been masterfully duped? Duke Lute internally questions the Saintess's odd behavior and the very existence of the relic, while a chibi Ordell revels in her gold. Ordell and the commander descend into a stunning, verdant sanctuary beneath the temple, the latter awed by its mystical nature. The commander wonders at the area's pristine condition, and Ordell attributes it to divine influence. He then anxiously inquires about the Relic of Light's location, confessing his limited knowledge of the High Priest's domain. Back upstairs, Ordell cheerfully entrusts the High Priest with counting the hefty relic fee, all in gold coins. Her internal monologue reveals a plan to substitute the real relic, anticipating potential opposition from Eric and the Mask. The High Priest solemnly accepts the bag of gold, understanding the importance of his task. Ordell pictures the High Priest engrossed in counting the stacks of gold, a pleased smirk on her face. In a cute aside, Chibi Ordell confirms with the Chibi High Priest that he genuinely doesn't know the relic's whereabouts. A system map conveniently appears before Ordell, a welcome guide through the temple's hidden depths. Ordell, with a confident smile, declares her Saintess instincts will lead the way, urging the commander to follow. They arrive at an ornate pedestal, upon which rests a small box, identified by Ordell as the Relic of Light. A close-up reveals the supposed relic is a necklace with a large, dark red gem, looking decidedly unholy. The commander, visibly perplexed, points out the item seems more like a relic of darkness than one of the sun god. Ordell feigns ignorance, recalling the previous high priest supposedly crafted it, while the commander voices his disbelief. She then posits the previous high priest was either a heretic or never a true follower, before coolly stating it's both. A narrative panel reveals the relic's creator, blessed by the sun god, betrayed him to worship his enemy, gaining power to forge this dark artifact. The shocking truth unfolds. The entity the former high priest worshipped was the novel's ultimate antagonist, the final boss. Ordell, grasping the necklace, realizes exposure to this evil will turn Lute into a villain, a fate she must prevent. A system window announces the activation of her body enhancement skill as Ordell powers up, startling the commander. Ordell examines the dark necklace, its ominous aura contrasting sharply with her divine mission. The commander voices his shock at the relic's nature and the former priest's betrayal, while Ordell internally shudders at the near disaster. He then shrewdly reminds Ordell of her deal with the Duke and the payment already pocketed, questioning her next move. Ordell, ever the opportunist, considers if the Duke's ignorance of the relic's appearance offers a loophole. A brilliant idea sparks in Ordell's mind, her smile hinting at a clever, high priest-related solution. She subtly probes the commander, inquiring about any temple artifacts specifically known for their healing properties. The narrative shifts, revealing the sun god's temple possesses not a relic, but a divine item with true healing power. A new, radiant necklace named Aurora appears, a stark contrast to the dark artifact and a beacon of hope. The distinction becomes clear. Divine items are God-given, while relics are human-made, highlighting Aurora's superior origin. Ordell recognizes Aurora as a potent, underutilized healing artifact, a perfect substitute to genuinely aid Duke Lute. Ordell realizes her blessing skill can supercharge Aurora, potentially neutralizing evil and even turning a future enemy into an ally. The commander voices his reservations, questioning the Saintess's sudden substitution of a divine item. With a knowing smile, Ordell assures the commander he'll understand her motives eventually, requesting his discretion. The commander's eyes betray his lingering doubt and slight bewilderment at her bold move. Ordell's determined gaze shows she's resolved to proceed, believing this is her only viable option. A system window materializes, prompting Ordell to use her blessing skill on the divine item Aurora. Before a grand altar, Ordell extends her hands, fervently praying for Aurora to alleviate Duke Lute's pain. The scene transitions to the majestic, sunlit exterior of the temple, hinting at a new beginning. Ordell presents the now glowing Aurora necklace to Duke Lute, declaring it the healing item he sought. Duke Lute studies the radiant jewel, his expression thoughtful as he beholds the unexpected artifact. Ordell confidently informs Duke Lute that her invaluable Saintess's blessing is now part of the deal. Duke Lute carefully places the Aurora necklace around his neck, its divine light contrasting his dark attire. A sudden surge of dark energy erupts from the Duke, reacting violently as Aurora begins its work. Ordell calmly reassures the visibly distressed Duke, guiding him to breathe through the intense purification. The ominous black stains around the Duke slowly recede, confirming Ordell's faith in Aurora's power. She firmly instructs the Duke to maintain his grip on the divine item, emphasizing its crucial role. Ordell gently places her hand over Duke Lute's, offering support as he clutches the glowing necklace. They are momentarily enveloped in a serene, sun-drenched field, symbolizing the encroaching light. Duke Lute, a look of astonishment on his face, realizes the chronic pain tormenting him has vanished. Ordell beams, congratulating the Duke on his newfound relief, her clever plan a resounding success. Duke Lute marvels at the Aurora necklace, finally experiencing a life without his chronic agony. He smirks, admitting the hefty price of 2,000 gold was absolutely worth this newfound relief. Achibi Ordell puffs her chest, proud of her ability to deliver results when properly compensated. The Duke playfully teases Ordell about her sharp financial acumen, jokingly threatening to reclaim the relic. He quickly retracts his jest with a charming laugh, clearly in high spirits. Ordell observes the Duke's relaxed state, pondering if this is his true, pain-free personality. She then casually informs him that her special blessing is the secret behind the relic's enhanced power. Duke Lute, adjusting the necklace, cheekily inquires if all credit goes to the Saintess then. Ordell, however, drops a bombshell. Her potent blessing on Aurora only lasts for 1 month. The Duke's amusement vanishes, replaced by wide-eyed shock at this critical limitation. A system window reveals Aurora's blessing lasts only 30 days, requiring monthly reapplication due to Ordell's current power limits. Ordell, ever the strategist, informs the Duke that continuous relief necessitates her ongoing blessing. Achibi Ordell cheerfully explains the new monthly Esteemed Believer subscription plan to a bewildered Chibi Duke. With a dazzling smile, Ordell then drops the bomb. The blessing recharge fee is separate, and don't forget those temple donations. The Duke, simultaneously annoyed and impressed, internally praises Ordell's uncanny ability to monetize salvation, which she graciously accepts. He smirks, admitting he rarely gets outmaneuvered but never expected such a fleecing from the Saintess herself. Chibi Ordell coolly inquires if he's refusing payment, reminding him of the no-refund policy, while the Duke melodramatically wonders his worth if broke. The Duke, with a sudden charming glint in his eyes, suggests his value, even penniless, lies in being eye candy. He then strikes a rather fetching pose, much to Ordell's utter astonishment at his audacity. Ordell, flustered but honest, internally concedes that despite the absurdity, his handsomeness is undeniable. The Duke notes Ordell's lack of denial, but she quickly steers the conversation to a more pressing matter. Ordell insists her blessing and his illness remain confidential, especially from the High Priest and the head of the Holy Order, to avoid awkward questions. The Duke, ever analytical, questions the specific need for secrecy from those two individuals. She clarifies that if they knew the Saintess blessed a holy relic in his possession, they'd swiftly uncover his ailment. Ordell casually leaves the decision to him, implying he can spill the beans if he doesn't mind the exposure. The Duke, with a sharp glint in his eyes, firmly agrees that discretion regarding his illness is paramount. He internally mulls over Ordell's youthful yet wise demeanor, questioning her true motives despite her apparent sincerity. His past experiences with betrayal prompt a decision to discreetly investigate Ordell, her family, and the Grand Temple. The Duke, flashing a disarming smile, concurs with keeping their arrangement secret, seeing no benefit in exposing his vulnerability. Ordell maintains a composed, knowing expression as the Duke acknowledges her title, the Sun God Saintess. Duke Lute, with a suave smile, anticipates the future developments of their peculiar arrangement. Back at the temple, the High Priest is utterly aghast upon learning the divine relic was given away, and the Light's holy relic destroyed. The shocking news sends the high priest reeling, his composure completely shattered. Later, the high priest lies in bed having fainted from the ordeal, while Ordell internally admits his collapse was unexpected. Ordell calmly informs the recovering high priest that the Duke has departed and the relic is effectively gone, privately blaming his vegetarian diet for his frailty. The bewildered high priest, still bedridden, weakly questions Ordell's decision to part with such a valuable divine item. Ordell serenely explains that the Duke's need for Aurora far outweighed the temple's claim on the light's holy relic. She then pragmatically questions the tangible benefits of merely possessing the relic, like automatic fame or reigning gold. Ordell reveals her strategic thinking. Duke Ciari's patronage and monthly visits will attract more followers and visitors to the temple. The high priest, still looking faint, expresses his disbelief that the incredibly busy Duke would commit to regular temple visits. Ordell confidently assures the high priest that the Duke promised continuous visits to check the divine relic. She then reveals the Duke is unaware Aurora is the divine relic, a detail that visibly relieves the high priest, who frets over the temple's reputation. The still recovering high priest gently reminds Ordell to consult him on such critical matters involving divine relics in the future. When questioned about the light's holy relic, Ordell brightly explains she applied a bit of force, and it simply shattered. The high priest absorbs this startling revelation with a quiet, thoughtful expression. He then confesses the light's holy relic felt strangely ominous, speculating its easy destruction meant it wasn't genuine. Chibi Ordell and a Chibi knight glare accusingly at the Chibi high priest, who hastily denies any ill intent in offering the Duke the questionable item. Ordell internally speculates if the Duke's original disdain for the sun god was because he'd been fobbed off with a faulty relic. The high priest, now troubled, asks Ordell how to dispose of the shattered relic, feeling uneasy about returning it to the Holy Land. Ordell, holding a small, ornate box, declares with unwavering resolve that she will handle the disposal of the broken pieces. Elsewhere, a crimson-bound report is decisively closed, signaling a new player entering the game. A clenched fist slams down as a man receives startling news. Ordell intends to act like a proper saintess. This man, Count Grace, scoffs at the idea, recalling Ordell's past attention-seeking schemes and doubting her sudden piety. Count Grace, however, deems Duke Ciari's unexpected visit to the Grand Temple a far more pressing concern. His aide confirms the Duke's presence with Yuri Fulton, but the reason for the visit remains a mystery. The aide suggests questioning Ordell, proposing that if she's truly aiming to be a spy, she'll be forthcoming. Count Grace, with a shrewd glint, agrees to send a letter to Ordell, seeing a chance to test this fake saintess. The aide bows, promising to dispatch the letter immediately, setting the Count's plan in motion. Count Grace taps his fingers, his mind racing with the implications of Duke Ciari's visit to the sun god's temple. He smirks, recognizing this as an unexpected big catch, and resolves to inform someone keenly interested in the Duke's every move. A mysterious message, "To my master," appears, hinting at a new allegiance or a hidden connection. The scene shifts to an expansive sunlit temple complex, suggesting a return to sacred grounds. Ordell is shown performing her blessing skill, channeling divine energy into a ceremonial brazier. A system notification confirms the light's holy relic was utterly destroyed, validating Ordell's theory about its opposing nature to the sun god. Ordell's eyes widen in surprise as an unexpected development catches her off guard. Despite her efforts, a system window reveals she failed to destroy a different divine relic, a legendary box made out of boredom. Ordell ponders the origins of this surprisingly high-grade unknown relic she now possesses. She examines the incredibly sturdy box, admitting she's hesitant to store anything within its mysterious confines. Ordell, ever practical, considers the ornate box's potential as an improvised weapon against future threats. The scene abruptly changes to a cheerful clinking of mugs, signaling a moment of camaraderie or a new pact elsewhere. A grand announcement heralds the commencement of the first Sun God Grand Temple Meat Festival, featuring a succulent roasted chicken. Ordell, beaming with delight, raises her mug amidst a hall full of priests and knights joyously partaking in the feast. Two young acolytes, cheeks full, enthusiastically devour their portions, clearly relishing the unexpected treat. Other temple members express their delight, acknowledging that this long-awaited meat feast is all thanks to their saintess. Ordell observes the lively scene with a satisfied, almost smug smile, her arms crossed in contentment. She then turns a critical eye to the high priest, who nibbles a minuscule piece of meat, prompting her internal disapproval of his delicate eating. The high priest, embarrassed by Ordal's unspoken judgment and the snickering onlookers, defensively refutes her implication that he faints easily. Ordal gestures emphatically towards a mountain of meat, encouraging him to eat more, but the overwhelmed high priest politely refuses. Just then, a stern-looking knight commander approaches their table, formally addressing Ordal as Saintess. He introduces Victoria Lawrence, a formidable red-haired woman, as Ordal's newly appointed personal holy knight, who offers a curt greeting. Ordal, with a strained smile, internally notes her new knight's stern demeanor and doubts the necessity of a personal guard. The knight commander firmly insists on the appointment, citing past dangers, and Ordal begrudgingly accepts. Ordal then graciously invites the commander and Dame Victoria to partake in the ongoing meat festival. Priest Dietrich, while savoring the meal, internally praises the ingredient quality and considers relocating the temple's grocery supply. Dietrich then mulls over the temple's culinary shortcomings, acknowledging the need for a professional chef but lamenting the cost. Ordal, radiating enthusiasm, presents more roasted delights, urging everyone to feast without a care for work. The high priest, visibly stuffed, politely refuses Ordal's offer for another serving, much to her amusement. Ordal, with a knowing smirk, deduces the temple's financial pinch and resolves to start saving and find new income streams. A young acolyte gazes at Ordal with a pensive expression, her title echoing in his thoughts. The acolyte's hand is shown tightly gripping a pink ribbon, hinting at a deeper connection or admiration for the saintess. Ordal reclines on her bed, pleasantly full after the grand meat festival she orchestrated. She muses with a satisfied sigh that even a small amount of food left her feeling surprisingly stuffed, a testament to her delicate constitution. Her new knight, Victoria, announces a visitor at the door. A trainee priest named Monica Hindle requests an audience. Ordal, intrigued, recognizes the name Monica Hindle, a spark of understanding dawning in her eyes. With a sudden knowing grin, Ordal identifies Monica as the original story's protagonist and eagerly instructs Victoria to admit her. Monica Hindle, a demure young woman in trainee robes, nervously apologizes for the late visit, citing Ordal's earlier business. Ordal warmly reassures Monica, explaining her business was simply preparing the feast, and inquires about her enjoyment of the meal. Monica blushes, fervently thanking Ordal for the delicious food, the best she's had since arriving, while Ordal graciously accepts the praise. Ordal internally observes Monica's charming appearance, finding her even more endearing than her original story counterpart, and idly wonders her age. A system notification conveniently reveals Monica Hindle is 18, prompting a nostalgic thought from Ordal about her own past life. Ordal, feeling an odd familiarity with Monica, directly inquires about the reason for her late-night visit. Monica, with earnest eyes and clasped hands, makes a surprising plea to become Ordal's personal maid. The trainee priest passionately asserts her capabilities, highlighting her promising status and eagerness to learn from the saintess. Ordal, with a knowing smile, humbly dismisses her own prowess, contrasting her money-boosted power with Monica's presumed natural talent. Monica, nearly moved to tears, refutes Ordal's self-deprecation, declaring that simply serving the saintess would bring her joy. After a moment's consideration, Ordal accepts Monica's offer, deciding they can begin her duties the following day. Overjoyed, Monica thanks Ordal profusely, her face alight with gratitude and a vow to excel in her new role. Monica then timidly requests if Ordal might speak to her less formally, while Victoria silently considers a similar notion. Ordal, ever confident, readily agrees to drop the formalities, playfully teasing that even her stern knight wouldn't prefer such stiffness. A blushing Monica expresses her relief and admiration, recalling a past slight that makes Ordal's current kindness even more impactful. Monica recalls Ordal feigning ignorance about a certain priest, a mischievous glint in the saintess's eyes. The trainee remembers how Ordal publicly humbled that same priest, then immediately showed Monica unexpected kindness. In Monica's flashback, a radiant Ordal declared that trainee priests were precious and deserved proper care. Monica, now Ordal's personal maid, internally rejoices at the thought of seeing the saintess every day. The next morning, the sun shines brilliantly on the temple as training chants echo through the grounds. Ordal, gasping for breath during morning exercise with Victoria and Monica, fears yesterday's meat feast might make an unwelcome return. Victoria, looking utterly unfazed, suggests a brief rest, while a struggling Ordal shoots her a look of disbelief. Monica quickly offers Ordell water, who accepts gratefully but tells her attendants they don't need to stick so close. Both Victoria and Monica firmly state their respective duties to protect and serve, prompting Ordell to dryly congratulate their perfect timing. Monica then presents a sealed letter, informing Ordell it arrived early from the house of Count Curius and inquiring if she'd like to read it. Ordell raises an eyebrow, a bead of sweat on her temple, as she questions the letter's origin from the Curies family. The lengthy letter from Count Curius boils down to one crucial question. Why did Duke Lutzieri visit the temple? Ordell, letter in hand, shrewdly discerns the Count's attempt to test her allegiance and resolves not to take this lightly. Turning to her new confidants, Ordell declares Monica and Victoria part of her inner circle, ready to share her plans. A sinister glint in her eyes, Ordell delivers a scathing verdict. The Count of Curius is utter trash. Both Victoria and Monica, rendered as surprised chibi faces, are taken aback by the Saintess's blunt condemnation. Ordell reveals her long-term plan to sever ties with the Count, but for now she'll keep milking him for funds, instructing her companions to play along. She then dictates her carefully crafted reply, a blend of half-truths about the Duke's visit and a new monthly temple appointment, designed to fool the Count. Dismissing the Count's finances, Ordell pivots, suddenly inquiring about the current state of the Empire's potion market. While Victoria looks puzzled, Monica steps forward, revealing her recent familiarity with the potion market from her time outside the temple. Monica expertly details the current potion market, split between the Great Sage's creations and the dominant Alchemy Guild's products. A worried Monica then questions Ordell's sudden interest, a flicker of apprehension in her bright eyes. Ordell, with a knowing and ambitious grin, unveils her master plan to revolutionize the temple's finances through hybrid potions. Days later, the scene transitions to the magnificent and sprawling estate of Duke Shiri, a picture of aristocratic grandeur. Within the estate grounds, Duke Shiri engages in a dynamic sword sparring session, blades ringing with intensity. With a swift, decisive move, the Duke disarms his sparring partner, sending the man's sword clattering away. The outmatched opponent concedes defeat, grudgingly admitting to the Duke's clearly superior swordsmanship. Duke Shiri, ever the tease, playfully wonders aloud if his own prowess has grown or if his partner merely slacked off. His humbled sparring partner vows to redouble his efforts, even as the Duke confidently asserts his continued dominance. A comically tearful chibi of the defeated man internally questions if the Duke's training regimen now includes devastatingly witty insults. Duke Shiri marvels at the lightness in his body, attributing it to the potent holy relic of light. An aide, out of breath, rushes towards the Duke, calling out to him urgently. The Duke, sword still in hand, coolly questions his aide's clumsy and hurried approach. The aide, brushing off the clumsy comment, announces the arrival of an important letter from the Grand Temple of the Sun God. Before the aide can fully present it, the Duke snatches the letter with surprising speed, startling his subordinate. Duke Shiri calmly examines the envelope, a subtle curiosity in his gaze. He then hands the letter back to his aide, instructing him to read its contents aloud. The aide reads that the Grand Temple is launching a potion business and wishes to include the Duke's merchant group, needing alchemists. The aide, looking perplexed, notes the letter's bluntness, questioning if the Saintess is always so direct. Duke Shiri confirms the Saintess's strangeness, but finds the proposal intriguing, especially since the temple rarely collaborates. The Duke muses that the Sun God Temple's historically potent potions could seriously undermine the Grand Temple of the Sea God. He recalls the Sea God Temple's arrogant Saintess and Saint failing him, anticipating a satisfying turn of events. His aide then smoothly transitions, inquiring about the ongoing investigation into Count Curius. The aide details Ordell's origins, adopted by the Count after her Saintess potential emerged, elevating his minor noble house. It's revealed the Count's family treated Ordell with contempt, leading to servants openly disrespecting and mistreating her. Duke Shiri, letter still in hand, shrewdly concludes they aim to break her spirit for their own gain. In a cute chibi moment, the Duke observes Ordell's unbroken spirit, admitting he himself was nearly deceived. With a decisive air, the Duke announces an impromptu visit to the temple, much to his aide's surprise. Duke Shiri, a smirk playing on his lips, suggests reciprocating Ordell's heartfelt letter with a courteous visit. The scene shifts to an elegant tea setting, the Grand Temple looming in the sunlit background, hinting at their arrival. Duke Shiri, now seated with Ordell, Victoria, and Monica, questions her ambitious potion business plan given the current market. Ordell, with a subtle smile, acknowledges she lacks the original story's overwhelming divine power and must find another way. She confidently declares her strategy: recruit skilled, unaffiliated alchemists, effectively killing two birds with one stone. The Duke, hand to his chest, agrees that with some breathing room, it's a good time for the temple to venture into business, recalling their past pride in healing potions. He thoughtfully strokes his chin, pondering the implications of Ordell's bold move. Ordell then drops a bombshell, revealing she's already sent a letter to Duke Shiri, intending to partner with him. The Duke, taken aback, inquires if this partnership was discussed during their previous meeting. Ordell, lounging with a sly grin, coolly states she's offering him a stake he can't possibly refuse. The Duke, Victoria, and Monica are all comically stunned by Ordell's sheer confidence and unilateral decision-making. Just then, a firm knock on the door signals an interruption to their strategic meeting. A flustered maid interrupts, announcing Duke Shiri has just arrived at the temple. Ordell, caught completely off guard, questions who could possibly be visiting now. Outside the magnificent temple, a stately carriage pulls up, signifying the Duke's grand entrance. Duke Shiri himself strides forward, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of confident charm. He greets the Saintess with a polite inquiry about her well-being, his smile disarming. Ordell, momentarily stunned by his sudden appearance, wonders if she's dreaming as he takes her hand. The Duke, ever the charmer, playfully asks if his overwhelming handsomeness has made reality feel unreal for her. Ordell, quickly regaining her composure, acknowledges his typical banter and demands to know why he's here so soon. A cute chibi flashback reveals the Duke's interpretation of her letter, believing she missed him and thus rushed over. Ordell, with a glint in her eye, clarifies that yes, she missed something of his, specifically his money. The Duke faces Ordell and her retinue, an unspoken challenge hanging in the grand temple hall. Ordell, flustered by his intense gaze, admits she skipped meals due to business, trying to deflect his scrutiny. Over a hearty meal, the Duke cuts straight to business, questioning her plan to involve alchemists in potion making. Ordell confirms the necessity of alchemists due to a shortage of priests, all while a chibi thought bubble praises the virtues of a good steak. With a charming smile, Ordell cheekily assumes his prompt arrival signifies his acceptance of their partnership. The Duke, matching her smile with an unsettling one of his own, confirms his interest but finds her expression suspicious. Ordell claims her smile is one of affection for a future partner, but the Duke astutely suspects a more capitalistic motive, much to her inner chagrin. She outlines the deal: temple production, duchy distribution, prompting the Duke to shrewdly question her financial capacity to hire alchemists. Duke Shiri, ever the opportunist, proposes he hire the alchemist himself, naturally for a larger share of the profits. Ordell coolly dismisses his counteroffer, revealing her plan to integrate the alchemists as temple followers, thus securing their loyalty. Ordell reveals her cost-cutting genius. Temple followers mean lower salaries, boosted by sales incentives, a profit margin she won't surrender. With a charming smile, she then proposes an 80-20 profit split for sourcing help, naturally favoring the temple's coffers. The Duke, utterly scandalized by her audacity, counters with a more reasonable 60-40, citing his dual role in distribution and sourcing. Sparks practically fly as the Saintess and the Duke lock into a silent, high-stakes negotiation across the lavishly set table. Ordell, her smile unwavering and a touch dangerous, insists the 80% stays, but dangles a tantalizing new condition. She leans in, eyes gleaming with absolute certainty, promising a term so irresistible the Duke simply cannot walk away. Her confident smirk broadens as she reiterates this unrefusable offer, savoring her powerful negotiating position. Then, the ultimate trump card. Ordell declares she will completely cure his chronic illness, leaving the Duke utterly speechless. She explains her divine power is steadily growing, enhancing her healing abilities until his complete recovery is assured. Duke Shiri, his sharp gaze fixed, contemplates her bold claim of ever-increasing divine might and its profound implications. Ordell, with unwavering conviction, declares her intention to one day surpass even the most revered saints. The Duke remains silent, his piercing gaze intensely focused on the audacious Saintess. She concedes her lack of immediate proof, but firmly offers a 70-30 split if he remains skeptical, refusing to go lower. He challenges her, questioning if she'd truly deny him a cure over a mere profit margin. A subtle shift in Ordell's determined gaze reveals a flicker of contemplation. With a rare display of humility, Ordell apologizes, acknowledging she crossed a line by using his illness as leverage. The Duke shrewdly notes her possession of a powerful bargaining chip she now refuses to deploy. Ordal clarifies her principles. A cure for a life-threatening condition is not a weapon to be brandished in negotiations. A subtle, almost imperceptible smile begins to play on the Duke's lips. The Duke, a genuine smile now gracing his features, concedes, agreeing to her proposed 70-30 compromise. The Duke, ever so smooth, presents a hefty signing bonus of 3,000 gold to seal their potion business deal. Ordal internally freaks out, completely floored by the unexpected generosity and the sheer value of the bonus. Clutching the gold, she mentally scolds herself for her earlier hardball tactics, now viewing the Duke with newfound, almost affectionate, appreciation. The Duke, basking in her sudden adoration, smugly declares his generosity is as boundless as his good looks. The magnificent temple stands as a silent witness, ready to become the hub of their ambitious new enterprise. Meet Jarek Lua, a self-proclaimed genius alchemist whose unparalleled creativity lies in twisting old recipes into new wonders. And here's Wolfgang Schmidt, an alchemist particularly skilled in crafting formulas, intrigued by the fusion of divine power and alchemy. Ordal shrewdly assesses her new recruits, noting their contrasting styles but seeing their potential as a dynamic duo. She then lays down the law, standard working hours, temple accommodation, and the sweet promise of overtime pay and sales bonuses. Ordal, with a confident glint in her eye, dangles the prospect of annual raises tied to success, pressing them to sign on the dotted line. The alchemists Jarek and Wolfgang eagerly agree to sign, thrilled by the prospect of bonuses they'd never even dreamed of. Ordal smirks, knowing that fair compensation for talent is the ultimate motivator, especially for skilled individuals struggling financially. As the alchemists officially register as temple followers, a system notification confirms a slight increase in Ordal's divine power. Ordal introduces priest Lana Eilach from the Temple of the Sun, who will oversee their potion-making project. Jarek enthusiastically greets the timid Lana, while Ordal privately wonders if such a shy priest can handle a supervisory role. Eirik confidently assures Ordal of Lana's capability, though Ordal, having trusted his recommendation, still harbors a sliver of doubt. Ordal instructs the alchemists to request all necessary ingredients for potion making and research through priest Lana, who promises to procure them. However, Ordal sternly warns them to meticulously record and report all ingredient usage, threatening salary deductions for any misuse. Ordal further explains that priest Lana possesses strong healing power and intimate knowledge of the Grand Temple's traditional potion recipes. With a confident smile, Ordal tasks the two alchemists and priest Lana to collaborate and create an exceptional potion. 2 weeks later, Ordal stands with arms crossed, a distinctly unimpressed expression marring her features. The alchemists, Jarek and Wolfgang, are locked in a fierce debate, their conflicting theories on potion ingredients echoing through the lab. As Lana timidly attempts to mediate, Wolfgang demands Jarek substantiate his wild claims, while Ordal and Eirik watch the unfolding drama. Jarek unleashes a rather creative insult regarding Wolfgang's intellect, leaving poor Lana aghast at his harsh words. Wolfgang fires back, questioning Jarek's genius status as Lana pleads for civility within the sacred temple walls. The argument escalates, with Jarek challenging Wolfgang to settle their differences physically, a challenge readily accepted. Ordal, observing with Eirik, finally understands the root of their stalled progress: non-stop, unproductive squabbling. Suddenly, a small fist smashes into the stone floor, radiating unexpected power and cracking the very ground beneath. Priest Lana, now emanating a terrifyingly fierce aura, silences the bickering alchemists with a single stern command about temple decorum. The once timid priest unleashes her full fury, berating the geniuses for their childish behavior and demanding an immediate apology. Eirik casually reveals priest Lana is actually one of the temple's toughest disciplinarians, known for her firm hand. He further explains Lana's passion for potion research is the only reason she isn't a holy knight, making Ordal finally understand his recommendation. The previously warring alchemists, thoroughly humbled, exchange apologies and a reluctant handshake. Lana, her fierce aura gone, smiles serenely, reminding them of the importance of mutual respect. Ordal struggles to hide her amusement at the dramatic shift in Lana's demeanor and the alchemist's sudden compliance. A flustered Lana then apologizes profusely to Ordal for damaging the floor, offering to cover the repair costs. Ordal smoothly dismisses Lana's concerns, stating temple funds will handle it, as renovations were planned anyway. With newfound confidence in Lana's surprising capabilities, Ordell happily entrusts the entire lab to her supervision. Sunlight bathes a vibrant flower garden, hinting at a period of growth and renewed harmony. Later, as Ordell and Eric enjoy the newly repaired garden, the alchemists greet her, noting its improved appearance. Ordell notes Jarek's haggard appearance, who cheerfully attributes his all-nighter to the allure of overtime pay despite slow progress. Jarek observes Lana's fresh look, only for her to reveal she also pulled an all-nighter, sustained by her divine self-healing. Ordell, ever the pragmatist, sips her tea and reminds them of the importance of rest and regular meals. Jarek confirms he's been eating well thanks to the free temple meals, earning Ordell's curt approval. The alchemists present their divine-powered potion, potent in theory but currently only mending minor cuts, much to Jarek's frustration. Wolfgang dismisses Jarek's insistence on a specific herb combination, but Jarek counters with 2 years of research proving their compatibility. Jarek elaborates that the delicate balance of concentration between the two herbs is the true elusive challenge. Sensing the brewing tension, Ordell wisely suggests a tea break for everyone to cool their heads. Ordell offers a rare word of encouragement, acknowledging that creating any working potion within 2 weeks is commendable. The team takes a moment to relax with tea, Jarek expressing gratitude for Ordell's understanding. Jarek, sipping his tea, remarks on its unfamiliar taste and the peculiar sense of calm it brings. Ordell explains the tea is made from dried hyas petals, flowers that grow in the Grand Temple, infused with divine power to soothe mind and body. The concept of flowers infused with divine power sparks a sudden realization in Jarek's mind. Jarek excitedly exclaims to Ordell, a brilliant idea clearly dawning on him. The scene shifts, taking us to the grand estate of Duke Shart sometime later. Sunlight streams through an open window in a lavish room, hinting at the Duke's opulent surroundings. Duke Shart sits at his desk, a weary expression on his face as he gazes into the distance. He reflects that a month has passed since Ordell spoke of the necklace he now holds, a thoughtful look on his face. A flash of frustration crosses the Duke's face, a dark aura briefly flaring around him. Yet he concedes that wearing the necklace, just as Ordell claimed, makes his condition much more bearable. Duke Shart recalls Ordell's claim that her blessing lasts a month, admitting she spoke the truth. A flicker of hope ignites within him. Perhaps this dreadful illness could truly be cured one day, even as dark energy pulses from his hand. He smirks, fully aware that Ordell now holds considerable influence over him. Curiously, instead of resentment, the Duke finds a peculiar satisfaction in this power dynamic. With newfound resolve, he commands his attendant to prepare the carriage for a visit to the sun god's temple. Ordell meets Duke Shart at the temple, noting his arrival was later than she anticipated. The Duke, with a charming smile, explains he first wanted to verify the blessing's efficacy. Ordell inwardly marvels at his nerve, testing her power and still smiling, even as its effects might be waning. His smile only broadens, making Ordell question if his worsening condition is causing this unusually cheerful demeanor. The Duke smoothly states his smile is due to his happiness at seeing her, while Ordell, momentarily flustered, suspects his true motive involves her resources. Ordell, with a knowing smile, dismisses the Duke's insinuation and ushers him into the lab. The lab is revealed, brimming with alchemical tools and bubbling concoctions, a testament to their recent efforts. Inside, Lana and Jarek are deep in discussion, unaware of their high-profile visitors observing from the doorway. Lana greets Ordell, mentioning a slight delay in potion production, her gaze then curiously shifting to the Duke. Ordell formally introduces Duke Shart, announcing his crucial role in distributing their newly developed potions to the public. The alchemists are utterly flabbergasted by the revelation of the Duke's identity, their faces a picture of shock. Ordell, with a sheepish chibi expression, admits her oversight in not informing them sooner, then tasks them with explaining the potion to him. Jarek, ever the enthusiast, eagerly steps forward to present their findings to the esteemed Duke, while Lana and Wolfgang still reel. He passionately details his belief that the correct ratio of almond flour and lintel herb would yield a potent effect, not a poison. When questioned by Wolfgang about the elusive ratio, Jarek triumphantly reveals he discovered a new ingredient that perfectly harmonizes the two. Jarek proudly presents the hyas flower, explaining its divine infusion allows it to harmonize almost any ingredient. He reveals that adding the flower boosted the potion's potency 5 times, making even the prototype market-ready. Ordell, in an adorable chibi form, beams at the Duke, highlighting the alchemist's collective hard work. She then magnanimously announces bonuses for the team, who erupt in chibified, grateful adoration for their saintess. The Duke, strolling with Ordell, expresses satisfaction with the progress and the use of his funds, requesting prototypes for testing. Ordell admits her earlier concerns about the alchemist's clashing personalities, but praises their current synergy, thanking the Duke for his recruitment aid. The Duke humbly deflects her gratitude, revealing his own desperate search for a cure led him to explore alchemy. He recounts seeking out the renowned Wolfgang Schmidt and commissioning a potion, only for it to yield no results. He continues, explaining to Ordell that just as he was losing hope in alchemy, a chance discovery of an old book reignited his efforts. The Duke elaborates that this seemingly ordinary history book contained a crucial hidden sentence about a light relic possessing healing powers. The Duke confesses his relentless pursuit of any clue ultimately led him to Ordell. Ordell inquires about the book's current whereabouts. He explains it was in the royalty-exclusive Imperial Library but has since vanished. He recalls the ancient paper turning to dust immediately after he verified its information, a frustrating end to a potential lead. Ordell finds the book's disintegration highly unusual, especially since the Relic of Light is ominously linked to the ultimate evil. A seed of doubt plants itself in Ordell's mind. Was that mysterious old book even genuine? The Duke, ever observant, picks up on Ordell's pensive mood, inquiring if she's troubled. Ordell smoothly deflects his question, insisting nothing is amiss, and steers the conversation back to the blessing, asking for the relic. Impatience flickers as Ordell firmly repeats her demand for the relic, her hand extended expectantly. Internally, Chibi Ordell admits her reluctance to handle the artifact, while Chibi Duke cheekily implies his interest lies in more potions, not pretty hands. The Duke, as he removes the necklace, proposes that someone afflicted like himself would be the ideal candidate to test the new potions. Ordell reacts with utter disbelief, questioning the Duke's sanity regarding his risky proposition. As the Duke's hand loosens on the relic, Ordell frantically commands him to hold on to it. She urgently warns him of the dire consequences if his dark affliction surges uncontrollably. Dark energy erupts around the Duke, who looms over a terrified Ordell as she cries out his name. The Duke winces in agony, clutching his chest as the blight intensifies, nearly collapsing into Ordell's arms. He coolly assesses the prototype potion, admitting it offered some relief, though less potent than her blessed relic. A Chibi Ordell fumes at his detached analysis, while a Chibi Duke teases her about her obvious concern. Now seated, the Duke smirks, while Ordell sighs, the contentious necklace resting between them. Ordell activates her divine blessing, infusing both the relic and a new potion with sacred power. She then presents the freshly blessed potion to the Duke, instructing him to consume it. The Duke consumes the newly blessed potion, dark energy still faintly emanating from him. He remarks on its surprising efficacy, noting it's 3 to 4 times stronger, leaving Ordell momentarily astonished. Ordell holds the sacred relic Aurora, its blessing now fully restored for 30 days. She returns the re-infused relic, sternly warning him against any more reckless stunts before the blessing wanes. He accepts the necklace with a simple, sincere expression of thanks. The Duke then presents a hefty pouch, cheerfully calling it this month's donation and recharge fee. Ordell is visibly thrilled by his generosity, while he playfully suggests her affection might be tied to his finances. She clutches the bag of money with pure delight, dismissing the idea his funds could ever run dry. Ordell's cheerful demeanor shifts to slight confusion, as if she's just processed something unexpected. The Duke, meanwhile, offers a charming smile, clearly pleased with his own sweet-sounding words. The Duke internally dismisses Ordell's slightly off expression, convinced it's merely his imagination. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit estate, hinting at the scale of their operations. The High Priest, holding a potion, marvels at the impressive speed of their potion production for public sale. The Duke, examining a vial with a pleased smile, echoes the High Priest's admiration for their swift progress. Ordell humbly attributes their success to Priest Lana and the alchemists, who worked tirelessly through the night. She then suggests a bold strategy, imbuing the potions with the power of holy relics, a proposal the High Priest finds questionable. Chibi Ordell schools the Chibi Duke and High Priest on business, stressing that first impressions are paramount for their new potion. Ordell clarifies this divine enhancement is temporary, only until an even better potion is developed, as relics have finite power. After a moment of contemplation, the High Priest thoughtfully concedes to Ordell's strategic vision. Ordell, radiating confidence, declares she will manage the relic infusion, urging the others to focus on their respective duties. A system notification announces the activation of Ordell's blessing skill, targeting the potions. Ordell, bathed in divine light, blesses countless potions, internally admitting she's pushing her own limits, not using a relic's power. Crates overflow with newly enchanted potions, each vial now radiating a potent golden glow. A confident smirk graces Ordell's face as she inwardly declares their business venture an undeniable future success. Suddenly, Ordell falters, a system alert warning that the overuse of her blessing is taking a toll on her body. She stares in shock at blood on her hand, wondering why her enhanced divine power still isn't enough to prevent such a backlash. Despite the strain, a system message reassures her that while she'll experience fatigue, her lifespan remains unaffected, and more power will ease future burdens. Ordell, relieved, realizes increasing her divine power is the key, resolving to hide her current weakness from prying eyes. Composure regained, Ordell turns to her attendants, announcing the completion of the mass potion blessing. Priest Lana, eyes wide with admiration, exclaims the blessed potions look incredibly mystical and are sure to be a sales sensation. Dame Victoria, ever perceptive, notices Ordell's slightly off demeanor and inquires if something is amiss. Victoria then mentions a faint scent of blood, her keen senses on high alert, making a tiny Ordell sweat bullets. Ordell, feigning composure, and Priest Lana both deny smelling anything, though Ordell's smile is a tad forced. Dame Victoria remains skeptical, her sharp gaze fixed, clearly not entirely convinced by their dismissal. Internally, a flustered chibi Ordell berates herself for the near slip-up, vowing to be more cautious with ventilation. Elsewhere, the High Priest converses with a formidable-looking woman with striking purple hair, wagons in the background. Ordell, accompanied by her attendants, confidently wheels in a cart overflowing with the newly blessed potions. The High Priest acknowledges Ordell's arrival, who proudly announces the successful enhancement, attributing it to a special incense burner. The purple-haired woman marvels at the potions, declaring their radiant mystical glow unlike anything she's ever seen. Ordell accepts the praise, a hint of curiosity on her face as the woman begins to introduce herself. The formidable woman introduces herself as June Vermin, Vice Chief of Duke Shiri's Lumen Merchant Guild. Ordell, the Saintess of the Sun God, returns the greeting, clearly impressed by June's powerful physique. June remarks that Ordell isn't quite what the guild chief and Yuri led her to expect, piquing Ordell's curiosity. Despite warnings of Ordell's unique personality, June finds her delightful, while Ordell internally seethes at Lute's gossip and admires June's muscles. Ordell showers June with praise for her astute judgment, which June accepts with a knowing laugh. The High Priest observes their animated exchange, a touch of confusion on his face. Ordell extends a warm invitation for tea, which June enthusiastically accepts, eager to chat further. With a sharp salute, June confidently assures Ordell that all arrangements are under her capable control. Ordell, lost in thought, can't help but once again admire June's impressive musculature. The High Priest expresses his surprise at the Vice Chief's personal involvement, recognizing the Duke's serious commitment to their venture. The High Priest casually informs a slightly bewildered Ordell about the Lumen Merchant Guild's extensive internal divisions. A chibi diagram illustrates the guild's structure. The Vice Chief disseminates orders to 3 units, only acting directly on the Duke's command. Ordell's golden eyes widen with understanding as the High Priest stresses June's exceptional competence. A sudden chilling memory from the original story surfaces for Ordell. The Lumen Guild's downfall was the catalyst for Lute's descent into villainy, starting with a key figure's demise. Ordell internally connects the dots with dawning horror, realizing the vital link whose death-spelled doom might be the very capable, smiling June Vermin. 3 covered wagons roll out under a bright sun, signifying the newly blessed potions heading to market. In a lavish office, a man slams his desk, astounded to learn the Sun God's temple potions are being sold by the Luden Guild as a popular trial batch. This is Louis Martin, head of the alchemy potion shop, who seethes with disbelief at the Sun God followers' resurgence. Louis grits his teeth, remembering his shop's comfortable monopoly over commoner potions, as the Sea God's followers targeted only royalty and nobles. He paces furiously, realizing the Sun God's potions, starting with commoners, will inevitably challenge their hold on the nobility, especially with the Lumen Guild's powerful backing. Louis Martin, with a devious glint in his eye, hatches a plan, believing the sea god's temple craves dominance. He acknowledges his inability to directly challenge the Lumen Guild, but sees an opening with the sea god Great Temple. The scene transitions to the magnificent, sprawling edifice of the sea god Great Temple. A delicate hand meticulously brushes long, flowing ice-blue hair, hinting at a figure of importance. Saintess Carmen Aria of the Sea. God Great Temple is being attended to when an aide announces a letter from Louis Martin regarding the potion business. Carmen expresses clear annoyance at being bothered with such matters, while her attendant nervously justifies the interruption. With an air of regal impatience, Carmen turns as the sealed letter is presented to her. She reluctantly accepts the missive, issuing a stern warning about its contents, making her attendant flinch. Carmen, lounging elegantly, begins to peruse the letter, her attendant standing by respectfully. A chilling, predatory smile spreads across Carmen's face as she reads, inwardly sneering at the sun god followers' persistence. Carmen Aria continues to read the letter, her expression darkening with every word. A vicious sneer twists Carmen's lips as she internally mocks the sun god followers' tenacity and their new alliance. She bitterly recalls offering Lute Shiri a direct blessing, only for him to arrogantly dismiss her divine favor. A flashback reveals Lute Shiri, a confident smirk playing on his lips, embodying his rejection. Carmen erupts in fury, her attendants recoiling as she demands to know how the Luden Guild became entangled with their rivals. Dominic Aria, saint of the Great Sea God Temple, enters, sensing the commotion and questioning his sister. Carmen, seething, informs her brother that the sun god followers are not only active but thriving, thanks to the Luden Guild's backing. Dominic stares in stunned disbelief, the news clearly catching him completely off guard. He turns his ire on a trembling attendant, demanding an explanation for their 2-week delay in reporting this crucial intelligence. With cold authority, Carmen orders the terrified attendant to be dragged away, his pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. Carmen, utterly exasperated, orders a change in leadership for their potion business, sick of the sun god followers' interference. She dramatically bemoans this lost opportunity for the sea god's supremacy, desperately wondering if any countermeasure exists. Dominic calmly inquires if Carmen has received any divine guidance from their god regarding these recent developments. Carmen admits to feeling a distinct lack of divine presence, a sentiment her brother Dominic echoes before proposing a new strategy. Dominic speculates that the absence of a divine revelation might mean the Sun God Temple's resurgence isn't a critical threat, advising a period of observation given Duke Shiri's support. He then suggests dispatching an informant to gather more intelligence on their rivals' activities. A cunning smile plays on Carmen's lips as she readily approves, clearly having a specific, highly capable operative in mind. A shadowy figure with striking purple hair and intense pink eyes emerges, their designated spy ready for action. Meanwhile, an air of joyous excitement buzzes around the magnificent Sun God Temple. Priest Lana beams with delight, proudly displaying a notice confirming all 500 prototype potions have completely sold out. The priests are overjoyed, revealing they're swamped with pre-orders, amazed by the Holy Lady's apparent foresight. Ordal confidently explains their triumph. Making previously exclusive holy potions affordable for commoners was a masterstroke. Internally, Ordal gives credit to Monica, admitting she initially doubted the timing, but Monica's independent market research proved invaluable. A flashback shows Monica passionately convincing Ordal that the time to launch the potion business was now. Ordal also recalls June Werman's impressive physique, reaffirming her belief that strong allies like June are trustworthy. The High Priest acknowledges the hard work ahead for their production team, especially since Ordal personally blessed the potions. Ordal and another priest offer chibi-style encouragement to the burdened High Priest, Ordal musing about rewarding him with meat. A divine notification confirms a slight increase in holy power as more people learn of the sun god, making Ordal realize the potions accelerate this recovery. Suddenly, a stern-faced knight appears at the door, summoning Ordal and her 2 companions. The trio looks surprised as the knight announces an unexpected visit. Monica's parents have arrived at the Great Temple. Ordal internally braces for a storm, recalling Monica ran away after awakening her powers. A flashback reveals Monica's parents were initially overjoyed, seeing her awakened holy power as an angelic blessing. The memory shows Monica's parents beaming with pride and affection for their gifted daughter. Ordal is taken aback by the heartwarming flashback, having anticipated a much harsher family dynamic. Monica hurries towards Ordal, her parents trailing behind as the temple members watch the unfolding scene. Monica apologizes for the sudden visit, admitting she wasn't informed, while Ordell had anticipated their arrival sooner or later. The atmosphere shifts as Monica's parents now glare, making Ordell feel as if she's being accused of abducting their child. Monica's father, with an imposing demeanor, directly questions Ordell, confirming her position as the Holy Lady. Ordell calmly affirms her identity and asks for his, noting his rather blunt approach. The man introduces himself with authority as Count Jake Hindle, Monica's father from the east. Ordell, radiating authority, coolly informs Count Hindle that as a holy lady, she bows to no mere count. Monica's mother, Miriam Hindle, steps forward, formally introducing herself and offering an apology for their abruptness. Miriam explains their journey was fraught with worry, having had no word from Monica for 6 long months. Ordell, with Monica at her side, smoothly implies she's already aware of their concerns, a knowing look on her face. She firmly states the Sun God Temple champions freedom, assuring them Monica was never coerced, silently daring them to challenge this. Ordell proudly lists Monica's achievements: a key aide, thriving personally, and a sharp business mind. As Ordell details Monica's success with the healing potion line, Count Hindle appears to want to interrupt, looking somewhat agitated. Ordell then graciously suggests Monica take her parents to the reception room for a proper conversation or a tour of the temple. With hands clasped serenely, Ordell signals the end of this public confrontation, maintaining her composure. She then proposes they all disperse for the time being, the magnificent Sun God Temple standing as a backdrop to her decision. Count Hindle notes the reception room's surprising tidiness, while his wife muses, "This holy lady seems far more frugal than their extravagant counterpart." A vivid memory surfaces of Carmen Aria, the sea god's holy lady, once drowning in opulence, a stark contrast to her current, less lavish state. Monica fiercely defends Ordell internally, declaring that the sea god's awful woman can't hold a candle to their modestly living holy lady. Countess Hindle emotionally confronts Monica, lamenting her daughter's transformation into a priestess after a 1.5 years of parental anguish. Monica offers a slight bow, expressing her regret for the worry she caused her parents. She clarifies to her concerned parents that her divine awakening was an unforeseen event, occurring shortly after she left home. Monica resolutely declares her unwavering commitment to the sun god, choosing this path for life, as her parents absorb her decision.